Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the board meeting of January 27th, 2026. Thank you to those who are joining us online and to those in the room. As we begin and in the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play in the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy and acknowledge the signatories of Treaty 7, the Métis people and Inuit who have lived in and cared for these lands for generations. Lethbridge School Division staff and students living and benefiting from Blackfoot Confederacy traditional territory honor the traditions of people who have cared for this land since time immemorial. Lethbridge School Division also acknowledges all Indigenous students, staff, and families who have helped shape and continue to strengthen our school community in the past, present, and in the future. Item number 3 on our agenda is our consent agenda. Are there trustees who would like to pull any of the reports from consent agenda? Tiffany.
I'd like to pull from the Community Engagement Committee.
Thank you. We will pull 3.4 and we will move that.
Can we move it to 9.1 under there?
Pardon me?
Can we move it to 9.1?
I will move. Why do you want to move it to 9.1 as the board chair report? I will move it to information items. So that will be the new 12.2 Community Engagement Committee. Are there any other items? Allison?
It's not it's just in regards to the, I see you moved it to 12.2, but 12.2 is actually under 13 information items. So just knowing it's a recording and
it's the knowing it's what, sorry?
It's a recording. So if when she goes back and hears and listens, so the numbering is incorrect. So you, number 12 is actually division highlights and you moved it to 12.2.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Just to clarify for the verbal recording,
okay, thank you.
That it's 13.
Okay, I will do that right now. Thank you, Allison. So number 13 on the agenda is information items. 13.1 will be our charter school update and 13.2 will be community engagement committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other items from the consent agenda to be pulled? All right, seeing none, we will move to approval of the agenda. I'm looking for a motion to approve. Craig? Okay, thank you very much. Those in favor? And that is carried. Now we move to number 5, approval of the minutes. Minutes for the regular board meeting of December 16th, 2025. You've had time to review. Are there any amendments? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve, please. Tiffany, thank you. Those in favor? And that is carried. No business are arising from the minutes, so now we will move on to Associate Superintendent Report 7.1, Business and Operations. Kyle.
Okay, sorry about that. I do have a little bit of show and tell with me today as well. So, but first, before I get to that, I just kind of want to give you an update on the financial reporting deadlines and kind of what we've been working on that for the past month here. So January was a busy month. We did have basically 4 deadlines in the last couple weeks here that we had to work with Government of Alberta to get some information out. So just some highlights from that. So the first one was our capital asset listing. So what we did was look through everything that we have on the capital front, and we kind of have to make sure that's accurate, reflects everything the division owns, review that, and sends that back to the Alberta Education. So, just some highlights from that we found. The division owns the total of 164 different structures, including schools, building, and modular classrooms. They are currently at a net value of $172 million within the division. We did have some enrollment verification that we just recently completed. We did have a total of 68 requests from Alberta Education, in which they request kind of an audit of our student enrollment, various pieces of information to make sure it's accurate for funding. And then we did have some enrollment projections that we completed for the 2026-2027 school year. And finally, we did work on the clawback from the Alberta Labor from the labor action from October, with the labor action being 16 days, an amount of approximately $6 million was called back from the division. So we didn't profit from the job strike. We are starting to work on budget for 26-27. That budget is due May 31st, with our capital plan being due March 31st. So those are two big items that we're take up our next little bit of time and priority here as well. And then just an update on what's coming for transportation. Our transportation staff are working on registration documents that will be released in April. So bus registrations will be coming out in the near future here as well. We are also starting to review our bus routes and look for potential route combinations and efficiencies for next year as well. On the technology aspect there, over the family reading week break, our technology staff will be installing wireless access points throughout SJF. Middle school, there's a total of 48 points and it'll cost about $32,000. Yep. Just a little bit of a background on that. So all of our access points that control our wireless internet throughout our schools, they are all going to have to be replaced by September 2027. The model for that has changed to kind of a subscription model. So what we have in schools will be dead by that time. So technology staff is testing out this product at SJF to see if it is a viable solution for us going forward. Once that's done, we're going to have to start looking at putting new access points in all of our buildings. We anticipate them to be approximately 2,500 to 3,000 access points in total at a cost of about $800,000. So that's something that we are, reviewing as well as part of the budget process that you will hear coming up through the next few months as well. The tech department too did apply for a grant for these. This is a microbit piece of equipment. It does solar, hooks up to the computer, and then they can do various kind of coding processing training within the schools. So we got a $3,500 grant. These things cost about $100 a piece. So we were able to get about 35 of them plus training time that will go into our school that can be used for different coding and whatnot. So just kind of a cool grant we got. Again, this thing looks like kind of Lego blocks with a cell phone on it, but it's used for a whole bunch of coding and training in the school. So kind of cool thing there as well. Two other things, just to highlight some of the good work of our staff as well. So in the December edition of Architecture, Design, and Construction Award magazine, Lethbridge School Division was highlighted for the West Cooley Station build. So big kudos out to Daniel Heaton, our architect, and Garrett Simmons for working on getting that article into the award magazine. So this is the magazine. It's a good read. Just kind of talks about how the school was built and some of the unique opportunities that we had during the school build. And then finally in the CAST magazine, so this is the Canadian Association of School System Administrators in the Winter 25-26 magazine. Lethbridge School Division was highlighted for our esports program. So big shout out to our tech department, Jesse Solowski, and Garrett again for working on getting this article published in CAS, which highlights, some of the good things going on with our esports program and how Lethbridge has kind of become a leader in that area as well. So happy to take any questions on those items.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kyle. Does anyone have questions for Kyle? Allison.
I just have a question in regards to the technology and the wireless access points piece. The $800,000 is a lot for us to have to try to figure out where it's coming from. I know that you've highlighted in here where it's coming from. Is this the change? I know that the requirement is there by September 2027. Is there any funding that comes along with that requirement to change by 2027? Or what is the stipulation that's saying that we have to change or the systems just won't work after that time? Can you just talk a bit more about, is there any options for us? Or is there a need for us to be doing some advocacy? Because I would assume other divisions are in the same position, and 800,000 for our division for some of our metro boards would mean a lot more than that. So just looking for some more information.
Sure, yeah. Kind of the rationale, I guess, the reason the change is, kind of in business in general, like everything we're doing now, more things are moving to a subscription model, right? So gone are the days where, we could largely just buy this equipment and hang on to it, and hopefully it lasts for 10 years and not need to replace it as often. The equipment the providers of this equipment have changed the business model to that subscription model. So, there is that larger upfront cost to kind of manage this, and then it reduces, as part of that subscription model. Is there specific funding available for this, targeted specifically for this? No, because it's this would fall kind of under our technology budget, our operating and maintenance budget, whatnot. So the process for how we're funding that is kind of looking at our facilities, looking at our technology, what are we putting in, and essentially mapping out a 5 to 10 year roadmap of when these items are coming up. So we kind of have some idea to map the budget out better to reduce those surprises. So does that put challenges on not having that money to do other things in schools from an operations and technology department? Totally. But if we can kind of map it out and have that 5 to 10 year plan, hopefully it'll just reduce the surprises, and we're going to be expecting them. But again, any advocacy to get more funding in the schools, we will definitely not say no to that.
Mike.
And just to add a comment, Allison, to your point, because I think it's a really good question, and I think this will resonate with people in the public. It'll resonate with trustees. The reality is everything's getting more expensive, and technology is certainly not immune to that. And that seems to be amplified in that space, whether it's switching to subscriptions or just the cost of the various machines. And we've done a lot of evergreening planning. But with the costs rising the way they are, it's really, really difficult to do that planning. And so I know past board and this board will really continue to advocate for, we need funding that's keeping pace with the increase in costs. So I think that's pretty important. That's a great example.
I would just like to make a comment about the teacher clawback that you mentioned, the 16/200ths of the budget to cover the days of the strike. I recognize that this shouldn't be an opportunity for unjust enrichment, and that there would be a requirement to take some of that funding back. But I would like to put some kudos out to all of our teachers who did extra work coming back early, perhaps on an unpaid day. And also my understanding is that they have done tremendous things to get back on track and to make up for some of those lost days as extra things, just part of their regular, without getting any of this money that's been clawed back. So, costs are going up, but thankfully we have our teachers who are doing a lot for without looking for that compensation. So that kudos to them.
Craig.
A couple of questions, Kyle. First of all, on this wireless access points, were they, I guess, a physical access point? Or explain a little bit, because how do we change, like, what is this? They're going to a different, what kind of technology did we have in our schools? And how is this different? If it's the same company, is it just that they want it on subscription and we have to change our equipment? Is the first question.
This won't help for anybody looking on live, but if you look behind you, Craig, right above that Canada flag sign, you see that little white square? That's the access point, right? So that'll drive all the wireless internet through our buildings. So without those, our buildings essentially become dead zones. So they do have a finite life, right? Expected, they have to be replaced. Usually they last 10 years, right? So it's just that before we were able to kind of change these on a regular basis, right? It's, replace so many every year, so you don't have this big cost. But unfortunately, when the business model does change, we have to change with it, and that's kind of where we are right now. So, as far as opportunities here as well, well, I know the tech department, when they're going out and installing these in the different schools, they are looking at some buildings have dead points where internet isn't great, so you can't get internet around there as well. So they are mapping those out at the same time, so they can hopefully improve the access throughout the facilities as well. So that is one of the bright spots to think from this as well.
Do we have an accurate account right now? And I mean, it's coming up for budget of how many of our students are funded 100% and how many are funded at 30%, is it? Like the weighted moving average? Do we have a number that we can look at, or is that still preliminary?
Yeah, so the weighted moving average specifically is, that's kind of the way I've done it, right? So with the new funding system that the government has put out, right, it's more based on a 2-year average rather than like 3-year average, right? So we don't have like specific numbers I can share with you now, but like we are getting the model is changing a bit, right? So I would need a little more time in advance to kind of prepare to address that next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Kyle? Okay, thank you for your report, Kyle. We will now move on to 7.2, instructional services. Morang.
Thank you. Thank you, Christine. Just a few little pieces to highlight and some gratitude to throw out to some folks. As you can see, the Chinook Sexual Assault Center is collaborating with Holy Spirit and ourselves to develop a school resource guide on sexual abuse and sexual assault, just in response to the increase in sexualized behaviors, crimes, and sexual assaults that are being reported in our community. We've always really appreciated the partnership we have with Chinook Sexual Assault Center and the Child Advocacy Center. Very knowledgeable. Cheryl Patterson and Chris Cassie have been phenomenal supports for our school division and for the divisions in this community. We have our second cohort of our University of Lethbridge nurse practicum students. Really excited to have them at General Stewart and then also at Senator Joyce Fairbairn. Want to just say a huge thank you. As you can see, Division Violence Threat Risk Assessment training was offered last week. Tracy Wong, Kaylee King, and Steve Com collaborated to provide that training for 2 days. Had some really exciting participation from Child Protection Services, Lethbridge Police, and other communities members. It was one of the first times we did have a real cross-section of all of the specialists, which really does represent the spirit and nature of what the violence threat risk assessment process asks for from our stakeholders. Carly Remitowski this Friday is going to be offering a PL on executive functioning in partnership with Building Brains, so Robin Gibb. Some really great work that she's doing there alongside with Robin. We always appreciate the work that they do and help us in providing early education programs. This month, I just wanted to make sure we did showcase our OT, occupational therapist, Megan Martineau. That's here for your perusal. She really is an outstanding lady, and what she provides in our schools is amazing around just education, consultation, direct service related to occupational therapy so that students can access learning. And that's my report.
Thank you very much, Morag. Are there any questions for Morag? Allison.
There we go. A couple of questions. So one is around the inclusive education and having Megan go out to do the presentation on sensory supports and school strategies and tools. I think that's great and fabulous, knowing that there's not a ton of parents that sit on that inclusive education parent advisory panel. Is there an opportunity for a parent session that she would be able to do with other parents as well?
Yeah, I would throw that to the Division School Council if there was an interest there. I'm sure Megan would be more than delighted to offer that.
Excellent, thank you. And then always great to highlight the work of the careers area of your portfolio. So the Trades for You is coming up on April 1st, so that's awesome. Just a couple of questions in regards to early education. Great to have hearing the ads, seeing the billboards. It's definitely out there. Lots of great feedback from people saying, yay, we get to register early. And I think that that's something our board has pushed for over the years. So great appreciation for that. One of the questions that I keep getting asked is in regards to when do they find out, or I know that you're taking that intent, but what I'm hearing at school council meetings is, when will we know if they get a spot in early ed? And if you need to get back to me, that's fine. And then I have another question as well. Keep going. Okay, so my other question is in regards to kindercare, and it's more of I guess it's more out to our board. So the board approved for a 2-year pilot of kindercare. And what I'm hearing at school council meetings is in regards to what's happening with kindercare, because parents are waiting to, or trying to plan for what next year is going to look like, and they're making decisions. So I don't know as a board what movement that we can make on that, but we only approved a 2-year pilot, which ends in June, if that's correct. So there is uncertainty for parents in our community. So as much as we've made headway in, pushing forward the EAP stuff to go out early for registration, the questions I'm getting out from parents is, how do we if kindercare is going to continue, how do we allow that to continue as they're trying to make their plans for their littles and their kids coming into our division, or they're potentially looking at going elsewhere for kindergarten rather than registering in our division for kindergarten. So I think that needs to come back to our board, and whether that's through our associate superintendent, that there's some conversation. But I think that, I know we haven't got to budget yet in May, but May is definitely too far away if we're going to get parents that are wanting to register. So I put that back out to the board, not you, I guess, but.
Certainly. Thank you, Allison. I think that's an important discussion. And I was also thinking that would be part of the budget conversation. Certainly May is late for the registrations piece, so perhaps we can put that as an item of discussion on our board budget committee. We can discuss that further more fulsomely at the committee meeting. Are there any other questions for Morag? Morag.
Sorry, I'd be remiss if I didn't just promote the early education program open house that is happening. So Westminster, Fleetwood Bodden, Galbraith, Nicholas Sharon, Mike Mountain Horse, from February 4th through March 12th. It's online, Garrett. Thank you so much for advertising. 5:30 to 7 o'clock. Just want to encourage anyone who is wondering what early education programming is about, because there are many who do know, but then there's a lot of folks that don't. And so it's a great opportunity Carly Ramatowski has put together for people to get a flavor of what that programming looks like. And I will come back regarding registration confirmation, Allison, in the next couple weeks. I'll let you know. Okay.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more questions. Thank you, Maury, for your report. We now move on to 7.3, Human Resources. Robbie.
Thank you. A few of the highlights. I would like to point out the 6 employees who expressed interest in the 5th class power engineering course at SAIT. That's for our QP Local 290. And of course, this is a meaningful, important registration and certification as it helps with our boiler systems in our schools, ever so critical to our schools functioning. Our staffing processes, they're just getting going. You'll notice we have a posting for a principalship at Emmanuel Christian Secondary. We'll have postings come out next week for a principal position at Park Meadows and a vice principal position at Victoria Park. And as we get into our receiving our budget and our funding manuals, we'll be able to get going on some of those staffing processes. Now, the information and communication does come out to our administrators and teachers long before that. Administrator mid-year conversations, I have to point out that that's a highlight for me. The conversations that we have are genuine, and it's a really good opportunity to speak with individual principals and vice principals, just as an update and a check-in and in a way that we might not have an opportunity throughout the year. It's more formalized. Our HR processes, Admin Advisory Committee, a great group of administrators. We talk about all kinds of things. One thing to highlight is this group is really energetic about creating an interview questions bank for teacher interviews specific to the teaching quality standard, and making sure they're all vetted and high level, really quality questions to choose from. So we're really excited about the work we're doing there. Our Wellness Advisory Committee, again, we had a great meeting prior to this meeting today. A specific highlight is our wellness partnership with the University of Lethbridge. We've been working closely with the university, obviously for years and years. We appreciate and are really grateful for our relationship with the University of Lethbridge, specifically the Faculty of Education, and working with Dr. Dawn Burley and her team on staff wellness. And we were excited that we received a small grant to do a pilot with 4 of our schools, Lakeview School, Winston Churchill High School, Victoria Park, and Senator Joyce Fairburn. These schools were selected because these principals are currently sitting on the Wellness Advisory Committee. But I will note for the record that every member of that committee had their hand shoot straight up to be part of this pilot. So it is called the Teach Well Partnership, and we're thrilled to be going down this path of collecting data and doing some research and focus group looking at staff wellness, all staff in schools. Teacher mentorship. We had our first teacher mentorship gathering with our mentorship community last week. I'd like to show some gratitude to Erin Herkett, who does the induction program. So we work in collaboration with teacher induction and mentorship, as well as Tracy Wong, who joined us for that session. It's the first session of a teacher mentorship community in years. So we are bringing back that teacher mentorship, and we have 7 induction 7 members of the induction program, so 7 new teachers and their mentors joining this community. And it's an amazing group of new teachers and teacher mentors, and we look forward to continuing our work with them. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Robbie, for your report. Does anyone have questions for Robbie? Allison.
My usual question I always get asked when the board package comes out. So on the first page under onboarding is support staff 17, teacher hires 16, caretakers 5, educational assistants 9. And I always get asked, did we get more money? And are these new positions? So if you can just clarify that these are not new positions and these are just replacing, or are they new positions that we have?
These are not new positions. So you'll notice support staff on the casual list. We've added 17, so that's to the casual list. Teacher contracts that are extended.
Those are contracts already in place covering leaves, teacher leaves for a variety of reasons that have been extended. So they may have been, let's say, due at the, to end at the end of January, but those leaves have been extended. Therefore, the contracts become extended. Teacher hires would be 16, and that means that they've been hired to cover more leaves. These are not new positions created. These are hires to cover more leaves. And so you'll notice that the number of teachers on the sublist has gone down slightly since the last board report due to the number of teachers required to cover those leaves. But you'll also notice 15 new grads in the process of completing onboarding, which means they're waiting for their certification from the province.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison, for providing that clarity for the public.
Excellent. Thank you. Any further questions? All right, seeing none, we will move on to 8, Superintendent Report, 8.1, Assurance Priorities Report. And Mike, you can just feel free to just go through your reports.
Yep, thank you. And nice segue, Robbie, talking about the wellness and the partnership with the University of Lethbridge. So under the first one, governance and stakeholder engagement, I just really want to say a big thank you to our post-secondaries in this city, the Polytechnic and the University of Lethbridge. They are great partners. They're always willing to work with us in a whole variety of areas, and they really have a positive impact on our division. So just want to make sure we give them some kudos. Then we'll skip down to effective assessment. You'll see that Carmen and Richard have been working to support EAL intake. So these are often families that are new to our city, potentially new to Canada as well. And you can see 14 intakes in January, 8 more scheduled in the coming weeks. So that's a great example of this is a year-long process for us, kids coming in to our schools. And, as a system, we need to adjust and make sure we're ready for those kids and have everything that they need to be successful as much as possible. And then you can see English as additional language benchmarking data, the data reviews happening, and that's a really important part of our process to understand where our kids are at in terms of language proficiency and how we can best serve them. Scrolling down, if you go to professional growth rate, there is good. Thanks, Kristen. Robbie talked about it, but I also wanted to give some kudos regarding the teacher induction and mentorship. Appreciate Aaron's work on the induction side. Appreciate Robbie's work on the mentorship side. And just know that was something that we've been talking with our ATA local for a number of years about doing some mentorship. So that really is another great example of how we cooperate and collaborate to support our teachers, and sure looks like a great group. I'm always want to go in there and say, hey, what's happening in here? Because it looks like some great learning that's happening. Then you'll see that elementary school leaders attended an assessment session with Myron Duick. And as a reminder, assessment's been an area of focus for us in terms of our professional learning and will be for the next couple of years. We don't want to be hopping around. We want to really spend some detailed time on assessment. This year's been a little unique in terms of professional learning. We definitely, with the labor disruption and that, got off track a bit. And so hopefully getting back on track, and that'll be part of the focus as we go into the end of the school year. Then on communication and collaboration, Director of Technology, Jesse Sedlowski, if you just scroll down a bit, please, Kristen. Yeah, right in there. He was presenting for the Association of Business Officials of Alberta conference on the new privacy legislation. We are fortunate to have Jesse. He is very knowledgeable in that area. It is going to be a challenge implementing a lot of that into education. We think there's some real positives with the legislation. I'm certainly not going to pretend to be an expert on it, but there's even things as simple as changing all of your language from previous language and all your policies and documents. And then there are going to be some practices that need to be updated, some things that we're working on. So really appreciate Jesse taking a lead on that and moving us forward in that area. And then on the last page, successful start for students. Just a reminder, I will continue to put this plug in. Kindergarten registration is open. We'd love to have your kids come to our kindergarten programs. We offer absolutely fabulous programs and have exceptional educators that'll really help kids grow. So keep the kids coming to kindergarten. We're excited to have them. I will go on to the next item, but first I'll just pause if there's questions. Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
Yes, on the foundational learning. I'm pleased that we've been able to find some funding for a program for grades 4 to 6 math teachers that aligns with the Alberta curriculum. One of the biggest complaints that I've heard is that they brought out all this curriculum, but there's been no resources. Could you just update us? Do we have resources for K-3 for math? And then what about English? Because those are the two main areas. And then social and science, just an update about what kind of resources are available, or do we need to look at other resources? Just so the public is updated on that.
Good question. I can start if you had anything to add. Yeah, I couldn't speak specifically about the various grades right now. I would probably just give you poor information. You are definitely correct that part of the challenge with the implementation of new curriculum is resources either not being available or not ready. But I would have to check with Aaron on specifically where we're at the different grades. But you're exactly right. That is a concern, and it's a challenge. And one of the reasons that we're grateful that the government has slowed the curriculum implementation a little bit, because it is about writing really good curriculum, but then the system needs time to adjust. Resources is a great example. You need resources that really work well with the curriculum. And then, of course, you need to change your practice and your planning and your assessment to align really well with the curriculum. So, and I'll give you an example. When I first started teaching, I remember teaching Social Studies 10. And the two resources there were two textbooks about that thick. And neither of them really jived with the curriculum. So you would do a little bit in one and then a little bit in another. And poor kids in their backpacks, they had these two giant textbooks that they had to carry around. And it was a great example of the resources really not being well aligned. So, but yeah, if you want us to get some more specifics, we can. But I mean, you're exactly right. Like, there are challenges with resources as we implement new curriculum.
Any other questions on this report? All right, moving along.
Okay, and as always, you'll see we have some donations here again. We're always incredibly appreciative. I know I sound like a broken record, but we're going to do this every time we meet, talk about the support we get from our school communities, because it's absolutely amazing. So very, very fortunate and just very grateful to folks who are willing to provide us with resources in our schools. Really appreciative. Okay, we've got some folks here. We're gonna just kind of keep rolling, and then we'll find the appropriate spot to stop. So you get to hear some really exciting things about our school division, and everybody's really excited to come hear the superintendent provide a report. So, like, this is a pretty big deal. So welcome, and we're excited. I'm excited to have this opportunity to share this information with you. So our school showcases. First, we'll talk about Proby Elementary School. So, and I'll just hit some of the highlights because I know you've read through it. Their 4 C's are really important to them at Proby, and I know a few years ago they re-envisioned them, and there was a lot of staff involvement, I think community involvement, and it's something that they really believe in. And the C's are care, courage, cooperation, and creativity. And when you go to that school, you see that throughout the building and through the things that they do on a day-to-day basis. So really appreciate that. A little later, it talks about strong focus on literacy, and I think they do a great job at Proby and all of our elementary schools. That really is an area, that foundational literacy. And really just encouraging kids to read and grow as readers. And I'll have the opportunity here in the near future. I get to visit the grade 5 classes and talk a little bit about what I wish I knew in grade 5, and I get to read to them a little bit, and it's absolutely awesome opportunity. And then, it talks about later parent engagement. So, they have many nights where they bring parents in. They have a celebration of learning that they do where students get to really demonstrate their learning in a way that's different from a traditional parent-teacher interview. And if you know, one of the things you know about Proby is they really do have strong community support, and there really are strong community ties, and the school works really hard to make sure that parents are welcome and they're active in their students' education. And you look at the last page, like there's a couple things that jumped out at me. You see, there's volleyball, there's 3D printers, there's leadership, there's the world famous lip sync competition. If you've ever been there, I was a guest judge last year, and holy, that's a hard job, I can tell you right now, because those kids are really good. And that gym is just rocking and packed, and so many people there. And I think that's one of the themes that always stands out in Lethbridge School Division is all the opportunities that our kids have. So we're very fortunate that way. Cole Agnes Davidson will go on to, and they've got their carnivals happening right now in these next couple days. If you get an opportunity to pop by the school, it's such a fun time. And it really is emblematic of something that Ecole Agnes Davidson has really focused on, I think, throughout their tenure, but especially the last few years, is that the French immersion program at Ecole Agnes Davidson isn't just about language acquisition. That's one part of it, but it's also about the French Canadian culture. And the Carnival Week is really celebrating that. And so that's where you really get to see it come to life, and the community's in. And if you've ever been there, if you get an opportunity to visit the Sugar Shack, you'll have lots of energy after that, because the sugar is free flowing, and it's awesome and it's delicious. I have a hard time resisting it, so I always enjoy that. And then they're doing fundraisers. They've got a dance-a-thon, and again, another example of one of the great things about this week in the Carnival is it just really brings the community in, brings the community together. The kids have a great time, but parents get to come in and be part of it as well, and it really is promoting the French Canadian culture and community. So they do great work there. And Chinook High School, we'll get into that. And again, you're going to hear very similar themes. Like they start off with their Howl Fest, and it's just an opportunity to have parents come in, see what the school's all about. Their welcome back barbecue, really, really important time at the start of the year. Then you get into, they talk about their Terry Fox run. And as a reminder, that's been something that our our school division has really focused on lately and over the next couple of years. And as you know, they're building towards in the next few years doing a really big celebration of Terry Fox. So that's been great. Then later it talks about the fine arts. I had the opportunity to be at the Rockin' Through the Ages, the 2000s performance, and it was great. And a lot of it was my kind of music. So I was just loving it, and the kids are just so talented and such a great show. I've heard incredible things about their most recent fine arts performance, do a really good job there. And then you can see a bunch of the athletic opportunities that students have, and just all the various opportunities that students in our school division have, and at Chinook in particular. Then we've got LCI, and you're going to hear a very similar theme, and I believe we have a bunch of folks from LCI over here, so it's probably going to be weird hearing me talk about your school, but and I won't catch it all, but again, very, very similar, that blend of making sure at LCI that, that we have rigorous, engaging academics, athletics, fine arts, student support services, just providing our students with a whole bunch of opportunities. And if you see the spotlight on STEAM, and if you don't know, STEAM stands for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And Selena put in a bunch of things that she's done here, and Selena's certainly been a leader in terms of the space program that she's done over at the school, and a bunch of engineering and science-related activities. So really appreciate that. And I really love seeing that the students from LCI are going to go over to Dr. Robert Plaxton Elementary and lead some learning over there. I love that. I believe they're actually at West Cooley Station the other day as well. So really, really always appreciate seeing that. Then as you flip along, you'll see the dance program has an upcoming performance, and LCI is an outstanding dance academy. You'll see French, the French immersion, and again, really talking about how do we develop language, how do we develop that sense of culture. You'll see athletics here, success that students and teams have had in athletics. So again, that really broad range of supports. And then if you flip to the last page, you'll see other languages, all of the languages that we offer at LCI. So Japanese, Spanish, Blackfoot, in addition to French that we do. And then of course, there's a lot of work to be done supporting students who are new to English and are learning the language or developing proficiency in the language. So again, another really well-rounded school providing a lot of opportunities for our students. And that might be a great time to segue. Like it's almost like we planned that. Okay.
Thank you. So now what we'll do is one thing we like to do as a board is celebrate the successes of our students as we're able here in the boardroom. And so today we would like to welcome the provincial and national esports champions from LCI. Welcome team. It's great to have you here with us today. So in December, Lethbridge Collegiate Institute Rocket League Esports Gold Team won first place at the Alberta Scholastic Esports League Provincial Tournament. LCI Gold swept the entire tournament and did not drop a single set. The team turned in a very dominant finals match against last year's provincial and national champions and won 3-0 and only allowed 3 goals. LCI scored 10 to take the victory. Well done. Well done. A week after winning a provincial title, the team won a national championship at the eSport Canada EDU Scholastic Invitational. LCI won it all in Rocket League at Canada's premier scholastic esports competition as school teams from coast to coast battled it out. The Samurai Gold squad outlasted Ecole McTavish from Fort McMurray as the 2 finalists ended up being Alberta-based schools. Coaches were Will Kellett and Cam Finley, and the student athletes featured Agrim Podell. Did I say that correctly? How do I say it? Agrim Bodell. Thank you. Agrim Bodell, Cade Fraser, and Alex Vervecken. Did I get those correct? Just want to make sure. Names are important. And so what we will do, team members, is the superintendent and myself, Christine Light, I'm board chair. We will call you up and we have certificates for you and we'll take a lovely picture. And then board members will be able to join in congratulating you. Okay? Right. Yeah, I do. Oh, well, that's a good idea.
Yeah, we'll watch you come up with. Yeah.
They won some last year.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
All right, Green Padel?
Can I give this to you?
Sure.
Actually, I can move it. That's what I should. Good job for me. Congratulations. Great job. Oops, sorry.
Cade Fraser?
Congratulations, Kate. Well done.
Mr. Becken couldn't be here.
So we'll have you. And Cam, for your leadership to this team. Thank you.
All right, let's give them a round of applause. And then are we going to take a picture on the stairs? Okay.
Back.
Sure. Guy in the back, or I'll do this. All right, I'll take 2 or 3 to make sure we got it.
Yeah, Ty, come on, Ty.
Sure. Hi, come on in.
Yeah, let's get him in here.
Go in the middle. Yeah, for sure.
Take this side off. We're headed. That's where you want to be.
Awesome. Hey, congratulations, team.
Congratulations. Yeah, well done. It's fantastic. Oh.
I love that. All right. We will keep on moving with 8.4 Town Hall. Mike.
Yeah, I'll keep going. So that was wonderful, and yeah, great after talking about LCI. That was perfect. So town hall, this one will be very quick. Just we want to know everybody's invited to town hall. It's next Tuesday, so a week from today. It'll be 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. at Victoria Park, and really excited to have everyone there. Two kind of roundtable sessions in there. The first set of roundtables will be just talking about educational transitions. So transitions into the system in kindergarten to grade 1, that transition from elementary to middle school, the transition from middle school to high school, and then the transition from high school and beyond and graduation. What does that look like for students? So at the sessions, participants will just select one of those and they'll have a good in-depth conversation on one of those topics. And then the second session, it's really about, we want to know about two things. The first one is just future of town hall. What ideas do you have for town hall? Should we do some things differently? Should we, there's a whole variety of potential options that people could discuss. And so we're very interested in hearing people's ideas. And then even just in general, we want to make sure that we're talking about stakeholder engagement. What are some things that we can do for stakeholder engagement, that sort of thing. So those are the questions. And just as a reminder, ideally you'll register by this Friday. That's in the perfect world. But we also know that sometimes things change. And so if you didn't register, you are still absolutely welcome. And we hope to have a good turnout of students, of staff, of parents and guardians, and of community members, and always really excited to host everyone.
Allison.
I'm getting asked from people that may have not ever heard of town hall or any information about it. They're just receiving an email saying, come to this event of town hall. But just from the basic level of, can you talk about who can come? Because it's, what is this town hall event thing that I keep getting emails about? That's what I've been asked. So if you can kind of break it down from somebody that's receiving these emails as a parent going, what is it and why does it matter? Why is my inbox flooded with this?
Yeah. No, thanks for asking that, because you're right. You sort of assume that people know what the town hall is, but not everybody does. And we hope to get people who have been to town hall and people that are new. So essentially what town hall is, it's an opportunity for us to bring people together from all walks of life in the Lethbridge School Division community. So again, that's students, that's staff, that's parents and guardians, that's community members who may not be directly connected to our schools. So anybody's welcome. And so that's really important. So if you're unsure, you're welcome. Just come on down. We'd love to have you as part of it. And then what we're trying to do is we're trying to get people together and we're trying to spend a bit of time just talking about education. And what we want people to do is share their own perspective and then hear the unique perspective of other people as well. Sometimes those things are going to connect and sometimes they might be different, and that's perfectly fine. And for trustees, it gives trustees and administrators in the division an opportunity to hear those perspectives, to give us ideas about, things that we can do to move forward, because we always want to know, what are we doing well and where can we improve? And so in terms of the night, it's really about coming and sharing your perspective and listening to others. And then what happens is there's also a survey so people can go back and add detail to it. And then what we do is we compile all that data and then it's provided to the Board of Trustees. We use it. It's one of the first things we look at as we start to do our strategic planning for the next year. And also, the data from one year doesn't go away. Like, we keep that for multiple years, and we're going to refer back to previous years as well, because we got quite a bit of data. So it's not like the data goes bad or is stale or anything like that. So again, a really good opportunity for people to come together to talk about education and give us the chance to hear their perspectives and help guide the direction we want the division to go into. So that's basically it. So come and share your perspectives.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any other questions for Mike around town hall? All right, moving forward, calendar of events.
Okay, and as always, oh, look at that, number 1, town hall. So remember, there's a reminder, town hall. Yeah, as always, I know trustees are great about adding information in. We've got that family day week, so February tends to be a bit of a shorter month, but if there's anything you'd like to have added into the record, we'd be happy to do that now.
Great, thank you. Now we move on to 8.6 AERR.
Okay, and just an update for trustees. You did approve the AERR at the last board meeting. Alberta Ed has indicated that we've met all the requirements, and we'll be meeting with them in February to go over our plan and share more details. I just wanted to let you know there was the grade 6 PAT data. If you look at the front chart that shows the overview for the division, the grade 6 PAT data isn't in there. Normally it is, but the government took it out because there's new curriculum change. But there was a requirement to report on it. So we had some reporting on social studies in there already, but we added in a little bit of additional because as we look through the AERR requirements, that was something that we felt like we just needed to add a little bit more. So there's a couple sentences there in bold that we added to, I believe it was page 13 of the report. So just so you know, that's in there. And it basically just talks about the new curriculum, and it gives some results for English language arts and literature and math. And as always, we did well on the acceptable standard in both those areas. Traditionally our grade 6 results have been anywhere from 4 to 5% above the provincial average in the acceptable results, which has always been really good. You have to be a little bit cautious about the initial PAT results here because with new curriculum, it takes some time to get tests developed that really align well with the curriculum, so you can get some funky results the first few years. And so that's one of the reasons why the government isn't putting it on the chart just yet, because we don't have any long-term data to see the trends, but we know prior to new curriculum that the trends for our grade 6 PAT data tended to be very good, and we'll certainly share that with you as part of strategic planning. So yeah, just wanted to make sure you knew that we updated that, and otherwise we're good to go on the AERR. It's posted and live.
Excellent, thank you. I appreciate you're adding that context to our AERR. Craig.
Mike, something that the public doesn't always understand, and even as teachers, we don't seem to understand. But when I was with PATs, the acceptable standard doesn't always mean that it was 50% or higher on the test. And when you say standard of excellence, most people think 80% or higher, but it doesn't always necessarily mean that. And so I think it's important for the public to know that these results can be below 50% or below 80% for those two achievements. And so even though we perform better than the province, overall, probably the marks aren't that great. So sometimes the public just sees it and then they don't realize that there can be significant differences.
Yeah, and that's exactly why they probably haven't reported on the data as robust, because you do need some time to get the assessments matching where they should be. And you're right, ideally the acceptable standard becomes 50% and the standard of excellence becomes 80%. But yes, it can definitely move. And the more that the exam is in its infancy stage, then the more likely you have some, and I wouldn't want to tell you the numbers because I just don't know them off the top of my head and I'd give you inaccurate information. But yeah, that's a really good point, that it's not always about 50 to 80%. And I know I personally make that mistake too, where I kind of just say, yeah, it's 50 to 80%, but it actually can float. You're right. Yeah.
Any other questions for Mike? All right, seeing none, we will move forward. There was no item on board chair report. I was hoping to have information for you at this, but it did not come in time. So there's an empty line there. We now move to 11.1, international trip approval, Chinook. We will welcome our guest to the front of the room.
Sure.
And then Morag, if you could just start it off, that would be great.
Absolutely. I just want to welcome Kevin from Chinook High School, Kevin Schenk. He is here to request approval to take approximately 30 grade 9, 10, 11, and 12 students on an international trip to Germany, Czechia, Poland, and Hungary from March 26th to April 4th of 2027. Information regarding the educational benefits of the trip and proposed itinerary are attached here as well. And I have a little handout that I'll circulate. I'll just turn it over to Kevin. Welcome to the board meeting. And I'm sure there will be a few lively questions that our trustees might have once you've sort of given a review.
There we go. Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin. I teach at Chinook High School, social studies. I would like to propose a tour over Easter 2027, inclusive of Easter 2027, which means, sorry, it was my brother. Jeremy is my brother. Inclusive of the Easter break, actually, so no days missed of school, which is nice about this one. It's a little shorter than tours I've done in the past. I've run 2 EF tours before, one in 2025 and one in 2019, right before COVID, which seems like a lifetime ago. But and this is actually the shortest one. Those were typically 12 days, and this one's only 10. I've included, I think, everything here. I won't read all of it, but just to summarize, the front page, I think, is your best resource, the proposal summary. And then if you're curious about more of the specific details further down, for example, cost and itinerary, that's all available in the packet as well. The proposal summary should be pretty straightforward. We're hoping to take somewhere between 24 and 32 students. It varies at Chinook from year to year. We've done tours with 30, 35 plus even, I think, at Chinook in the past. My 2 tours were more like mid to high 20s in terms of students usually. So anywhere between 24 and 32. 32 isn't a hard cap, but I don't expect that it would get any larger than that usually from my experience. The destination for this one is Central Europe. So Berlin, Prague, Krakow, and Budapest is what the tour is called. However, I, as I've done on my previous 2 tours, am proposing a slightly modified version of it, just with a few small changes to the itinerary. And then the bonus of that is that it's a private tour as well, instead of if you have less than 30, EF often wants you to link up with another tour from another school. But just that introduces variables that I'm not comfortable with. So I always ask them to do a private tour instead, which is just slightly more expensive, but not by a large margin. And then, so as a social studies teacher, my rationale for the tour is of course history chiefly and culture. This tour in particular, I was attracted to it because it has a very strong focus on the 20th century, which is what I teach in high school social studies mostly, more than anything. We talk about Europe in the 19th and 20th centuries, specifically World War II history, and then the Cold War era, the Soviet bloc, and then there's a significant focus on the Holocaust in this tour as well, which was another thing that drew me to it, because I know our students will be engaged with it. These are places they've heard of, they've talked about in class, they know about, and will get to see on the tour. So, and then there's some medieval history thrown in there as well, which is my nerdy thing I'm nerdily excited about, even though we don't really get to talk about it much in high school. So lots of medieval history to discuss there, some castles and stuff like that on the tour as well. The cost of the tour, but based on 24 travelers on a private tour, all inclusive, is going to be somewhere in the vicinity of about $5,700 per traveler. This, as with any EF tour, includes flights, hotels, food, entrance to all the stuff that we'll do. And then this $5,700 also includes the EF Global Travel Protection Plan, which I suggest is functionally mandatory. I put it on students to opt out of that if they want to opt out of that, because that protects their investment if they need to withdraw for any reason or cancel. So they can opt out of that $200 if they so choose. And then that $5,700 also includes the other fees associated with a tour like this. For example, a bus to Calgary and from Calgary for all of us, so we all travel together. And then the other thing that's included in that is tips. On a tour like this, you are customarily expected to tip your bus drivers, your tour guides, your tour director from EF as well. So that $5,700 is all inclusive, and it's a slightly high estimate. It probably would be a little bit lower than that, somewhere in the $5,600, $5,650 range. But I wanted to estimate high just so nobody was caught off guard. Which works out to, if people enroll in February, I've gotten EF to offer us an early enrollment bonus as well. So if they enroll in February, it'll be around $400 a month. EF said $370, but including the other fees, probably around $400 a month over 13 months is what it would cost. EF has recently introduced a payment. They've partnered with a payment provider called Uplift, and you can pay the total of the tour over a longer duration as well. So for people who can't afford the $400 a month, they can stretch that out over, I think, 2 years is what they offer. So it would be significantly cheaper in that regard as well. Which I am planning to take my wife on the tour, and if for an adult traveler, it's actually even more expensive. So I will be using that payment provider as well, because I could not afford to pay for this upfront. So I think most people will take advantage of their stretching the tour cost over 13 months or maybe 24 months. But yeah, that's basically all in the proposal summary. If you're interested, I have posted an itinerary here in this booklet as well, and I've broken it down kind of by day in terms of what we would be doing, but lots and lots and lots to see. The thing I really like about EF tours, I'm sure most of you are familiar with them, is that they are jam-packed. So for that $5,700, there is not a moment of time that is not useful. And I really like that, A, because you get your money's worth, and B, also because it prevents too much free time. And I like to avoid too much free time on tours like this, just to mitigate risk and also to make sure they're getting their money's worth. So, and this, as I said, is my third time with EF, so I'm pretty familiar with that. So it looks to be a really great itinerary. Very exciting. Lots and lots to do. Lots of museums, lots of cultural experiences. The dinners are always really good. Cultural food. They try to take you to local places, and so you get a lot out of it. And then, there's the only other thing, I guess, is I've included at the end, if you're interested, their certificate of insurance, and then a few booking conditions as well. They have a big, long list of booking conditions that I can provide if anybody wants to know more. But it's things like cancellation insurance and all that type of thing. So, but yeah, I think that's That's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm open to any kinds of questions. I feel like I'm pretty familiar with EF tours at this point. So
That's fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. This sounds like it's going to be an incredible trip. I've only been to Budapest, so reading through the itinerary for that day, I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. I did that. Yeah, it's going to be an incredible experience for the students. Are there any questions for Kevin? Cheryl, and then Craig.
Hi, Kevin. First of all, thank you for providing this opportunity for students. It's wonderful, and it does look like an amazing trip. I have several questions around finances. So first of all, most important, can you tell me what accommodations are made for students that may not have the financial means but would like to participate in this trip?
yes, absolutely. Yeah, this is always a question about EF tours because they are expensive. There's no way around that. And so when you fill out all the forms, it asks you, is this inclusive? Is this inclusive? And it's tough to answer that question, honestly. They are expensive. And when I was a high school student, I don't know that I would have been able to participate in a tour like this. The cost can be prohibitive for some. There are a few ways I answer that question usually. EF offers a few cost mitigating things, like for example, there's sort of like a GoFundMe website that they have where you can sort of solicit family members to contribute towards the trip. But I think the biggest thing EF does is offering payments. That's the only way, as I said, that I would be able to afford a trip like this is to pay monthly. Some parents choose, which has always sort of flabbergasted me, to put it on a credit card or whatever. I'm always surprised when I see that. But for most travelers, they do payments. So they'll do 13 monthly payments, or as I said, they have partnered with Uplift to potentially allow you to stretch that out over a longer duration. And then on the student side, like we've talked about as a school doing fundraising stuff for tours like this before, but it's always tricky because you can't fundraise for just the one or two students who want to do it. If you fundraise, it ends up having to kind of be divided among the whole 24 for fairness sake. And then it ends up kind of being peanuts, like if you do a bottle drive or whatever and you have to divide it between 24 travelers, it ends up being more time than it's worth for a lot of people to run fundraising stuff. So at Chinook, we used to, I'm not sure the status of this anymore, it's been a bit gray, but we used to sell grocery cards or allow students to sell grocery cards, and a portion of the funding went towards trips like this. But that was kind of the extent of our school-based fundraising in the past. So yeah, mostly what I say to kids, truthfully, is if you want and you're dedicated to coming to this, a casual job, 10 hours a week maybe, and you could pay the $300 to $400 a month necessary to travel if that's within your ability. So if a student is, and I've probably 10 students on my past tours who've done this, who've taken on a casual position of some kind, either a job or just doing casual work. And yeah, for 10 hours a week, you could pay $300 to $400 a month to do this. If you're not lucky enough to have a family who is willing to contribute. So yeah, it's tough for sure, but there are some options.
Okay, a couple other questions I have. This Uplift, what is the cost for that? I'm sure they don't do it for free.
My understanding, I'm going to look into it myself because that's the method that I'm going to be using most likely, is that there is interest on the loan. It's functionally like the type of loan you'd take it to get furniture or whatever. It's a buy now, pay later kind of thing. So, but yeah, no, I was looking at their interest rates and stuff, and it all seemed like relatively reasonable. And I think their highest term was 24 months to stretch out the $5,700. So something like $300 to $350 a month instead, so a little more reasonable. And the nice thing about Uplift is that you can continue paying after the tour, whereas if you pay through EF, you have to be paid up before the tour date, so your timing is very much more limited. But yeah, in terms of it's a private company, so there will be interest on that as well. EF, if you do their payment plan, does not charge interest. It's interest-free payments over that 13 months. So
okay, thanks for that, because that's a cautionary thing for people who are financing things, that sometimes they don't consider that, and it could end up to be quite a bit. My last question, and I'm not cheap, I'd like to preface this by saying that, is $250 for tipping per student when you have 30 students. If you get 30 students, is $7,500. That seems excessive to me.
Yeah, so this is also, that $250 also includes the bus travel to and from Calgary. So we would rent a Southland bus. But yeah, I think in the past, it's worked out to be something like maybe 150 to 200 for tips and the rest for bus. Tipping, yeah, the customary tips, I've also sort of felt that way in the past. A lot of that goes towards the tour director who's with you for 24 hours a day on the tour, which, yeah, is a huge perk of an EF tour because you have constant support with you 24/7. These are just customary tips. Actually, I was just discussing with a coworker who's going on an EF tour this year, and they said EF has an option now where they can actually handle the tips for you and just kind of bake that into the price of the tour. So that's something that I'm going to look into as well, as opposed to us collecting it through School Cash Online and having to take a big stack of cash with us. Yeah, it's more, yeah, the bulk of that payment goes towards the tour director and then some for the bus drivers and for the other tour guides and stuff. Yeah, the cost breakdown works out to something like, on my last tour was like it was in pounds because we were in the UK, it was like £7 per student per guide. So in that sense, it seems kind of smaller, but on an EF tour like this, that's 10 days long, you have probably 15 guides. You have probably 5 or 6 bus drivers because you change buses a lot, and then the tour director on top of that. So you are working with a lot of people. So it makes that number seem a bit higher. Yeah, for sure.
It does. And I do support tipping, but I'm already paying a premium. And so, it's hard for some parents when you have these add-on costs. To some folks, $250 is not that much, but that could be a deal breaker for some families. Thank you.
Craig.
Yeah, I really think this is a good tour. One of the things that I'm pleased about, and it may seem strange, is students need to learn about the horrors of things that have happened in the world, because if we don't, it can be repeated again and again. And so I'm really pleased that you're taking time to look at what the German Nazis did and how they got away with it and how we can stop. And that's something that the kids can learn to. Plus, the opportunity to tour the concentration camps. I think that really brings into perspective to young people the horrors of what could happen if we don't follow history. So I'm really pleased that you're taking the time to teach these kids on that tour, plus all the other history, which is great. So thank you.
Yeah, I echo your sentiments. Like, obviously, I'm excited about everything in here. Like I said, I'm a medieval history nerd, so the castles and all of that are really cool too. But truthfully, the number one reason I chose this tour was the tour of Auschwitz. And it's a really tough thing to manage, right? Like, you don't want to say you're excited about that, but like, what a rich experience for students and for how often we talk about the Holocaust in high school social studies as well. It's present in virtually every year, 9, 10, 11, and 12, at least a little bit. This is something that students have heard a lot about, but being able to sort of experience it is, I can't think of much more of a valuable travel experience than that. So I agree. Yeah. And I appreciate EF focusing, especially this first portion of the tour, on that history. So yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Craig. I'm looking for a question or a motion. Christina.
I move that the Chinook High School trip to Germany, Czechia, Poland, and Hungary in March 2027 be approved by the board on the condition that all division policies and procedures are strictly followed, and with the understanding that future travel advisories and/or vaccination requirements may affect the trip's ability to proceed.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Those in favor? And that is carried. Have a fantastic trip.
Thank you, guys.
Keeping, but in our agenda, it's
I did see that.
2007.
Yeah,
so.
Thank you, Christina, for verbally changing that. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Kevin, for coming to present to us today. All right, we will now move on to 11.2, our first quarter financial reports, and we welcome Avis de Kelver.
Loading. Okay, all right. Hello, everybody. So I'm happy to present the 2025-2026 first quarter report ending November 30th, 2025. So this presentation is an overview of the quarterly reporting that you would have had in your board agendas. And so just this report is based off of the preliminary 2025-2026 budget, which was approved in May of 2025, plus any adjustments that would have occurred after this date. So 2 large adjustments that we're going to kind of talk about throughout the presentation. One is there was a $583,000 facility lease grant that was received for the Christian schools. So this is an in and out. So the revenue comes in and then the division pays it to the Christian school societies. It's not included in the preliminary budget because we have to apply for it every year and the amount varies so drastically from year to year. So that's why that's always adjusted for after. And it's an in and out. So there's no additional revenue or anything like that for the division. And then the second item is $6 million reduction of grant revenue as a result of the October 2025 labor action. So there were less expenses incurred there, so therefore our grant revenue is being clawed back. So we'll talk about that kind of throughout the presentation. And as well, if you have any questions, please just stop me along the way. And so for some of you, this is a new presentation, so I just wanted to remind everyone about what we'll be looking at. So we have budget charts. There's 2 separate ones. So the first one, the color that's in blue is the budget. The colors in green is forecasted, and then the red line is the actuals, as well as in the circle graphs, same thing. The blue is the budget, the green is the forecast, and the red is the year to date. As well, there's check marks in each section that we'll go through. We'll go through the departments and the types of expenses. So you'll see today that there's 2 colors that we have. So within the forecasted costs, and then there's a couple yellow ones that we're monitoring, but overall it's within budget. And there'll be some explanations when we get to those sections. Okay, so first we'll start with revenues. So as at November 30th, 2025, 21.7% of revenues have been received compared to forecasted costs of 25%. So as we discussed, the $6 million payable has been recorded as these funds will be clawed back by Alberta Education. So less expenses, less revenues should be nil. So there'll be no impact in that. There's been calculations basically what those costs were, and that's what's being clawed back. As well, the Federal and First Nations is our agreement with the Kainai Board of Education. That is usually paid at the end of March, so that's why that's a 0 for right now. Fees are lower than forecasted. This is usually, this has been fairly consistent with the last number of years. All possible fees are are budgeted throughout the year, as well as since there was disruption to activities, you'll see that both the fees as well as the fundraising and gifts and donations are lower than forecasted. Those are all the school generated fund activities. So if there was activities that were maybe delayed, then that would then those costs would then be collected at a later date. You'll see that less revenue, less expenses as well in the later in the report. So those are consistent with each other. The other sales and services, that is higher than forecasted costs. Those are our international students. So any students that would have paid at the beginning of the 25-26 school year, that revenue is now has been recorded. So it is a little bit higher. And investment income is comparable to forecast. And we talked about the donations and the fundraising. Next, we'll get into expenses. And so for overall for the division is comparable to 23.1% actual with 26.6% forecast. So the reason why some of the forecasted expenditures is higher than the traditional 25, 25, 25 you'd see throughout the year is that a good chunk of our expenses are 10 months versus 12 months. So we have some salaries that are just paid over 10 months, as well as our busing contract is only over 10 months. And then in our first quarter, we see a lot of expenses. For example, our audit fees, software subscriptions, and insurance all come out in the first quarter. So as shown, we'll go through each department and then we'll go through types as a breakdown through each of the expense areas. So first within instruction pre-K, so forecasted costs are 31%, actuals are at 24.1%. So the majority of this staff is 10 months, so that's why it's higher than the traditional 25%, but overall it's in line with budget. The instructional for kindergarten to grade 12 is at 21.3% of its total budget. within the forecasted cost of 25.4. So this is where the largest portion of the clawback is being recorded. The majority of the decrease, there's retro and increased salaries for certificated staff that's going to be recorded in December of 2025. So this is as of the end of November. So that's by the end of February, when I come to see you again in March, I expect it to be fairly in line with our projections. So operations and maintenance, so is at 30.6% of its year to date. The forecasted is at 30.4. So these budgeted numbers have also been reflected for the Christian school, but again, it's just an in and an out. So they have just been increased by that. The day-to-day operating costs for operations and maintenance are within their estimated forecasted. The reason why this is over slightly is for our IMR and our CMR, which is our infrastructure maintenance and renewal funding. That kind of ebbs and flows throughout the year, depending on when projects are, when labor is available, when products are available. That we have carry forward funds for this, so we are not over budget. We're not spending money we don't have. It's just the timing of the expenses. So that's why it gets the yellow check mark versus the green. But there are no concerns within this area. It's about $46,000. For transportation, the actual is at 27.2% within the forecasted cost of 30. So the revenues that we receive for our transportation are over the 12 months, but the expenses are within the 10 months. So that's why you see that the 30% is higher than the traditional, as well as there was savings within October 2025 with the labor disruption. The transportation grant was submitted at the end of November. And so when I again come to see you again in March, that will be adjusted for, as that was just finalized and approved at the end of December. And yeah.
So on transportation, I knew they clawed back the teacher salaries. Did they claw back some?
No. So
Okay.
yeah, that's a great question, Craig, but they did not claw back any transportation funding. No.
But we didn't have to pay out any money.
No.
Okay.
Just to clarify, we still paid our regular transportation contract during the strike. So Southland still employed their bus drivers during the strike. Yeah.
So system administration is at 29.8% of its total budget. So this is under the forecasted costs of 30.5. Why this is higher than the traditional 25% is bigger costs in quarter one include our audit, memberships, and our insurance all comes out in the first quarter. And then last but not least is our external services, our international program. So this is a self-sustaining program, which means that the money that is generated in this program pays for all the expenses. It's at 19% as at the end of November 30th, and the forecasted costs are at 25%. There's more homestay costs and recruitment costs coming up in quarter two. So this should be fairly in line by the end of February. So next we'll go into the types of expenses. So first we'll start with the salaries, benefits, and professional development. The forecasted costs were at 25.1. The year to date is at 21.3. So again, this is where the funding clawback will be, as there was less expenses in this quarter. Is also expected, again, the retro payments in December, that'll be more in line. And then the other thing to just take into consideration is for some employees, the end of that, while our fiscal year is from September to August, the calendar year, some may have maxed out on their EI and CPP benefits. So then the employer portions have already been paid as well. So those reset in January of 2026. For contracted services, the forecasted costs are at 33.4%. The actuals were at 32.3%. So within expectations, these are higher as the traditional 25%. Again, this is where transportation and the audit would be recorded. So that's why it's higher than the 25%. Other services, the forecasted costs were at 53.8, actuals were at 55.6. So it's a difference of approximately $55,000. So the first area, why this is higher, that's where the insurance and memberships are recorded. That would have been paid in that first quarter. And then the second area is that there were some actuals over forecasted costs at the end of this quarter. Upon review, printer and printing costs were a little over the forecasted. However, again, it's at the beginning of the year, getting things ready. It's expected to be within budget at the end of the year. Supply costs were forecasted at 32.3. Year to date was at 32.6, so higher by approximately $12,000. This is fairly consistent with previous years as well, where it's always been a little bit over at the beginning, again, just getting things ready for the beginning of the school year. And similar in prior years, it's always been quite under budget by the end of the year. Other expenditures include contingency, travel, car allowance, and some minor building repairs. Forecasted costs are at 25%. The year to date is at 12.9. This is a fairly small budget area, and there's currently savings and contingencies as you only use that when it's an emergency. So that is currently under forecasted costs as well. And last but not least, our school generated funds, IMR, and amortization. Forecasted costs were at 25%. Year to date is at 20.4. Amortization occurs monthly for all of the division's assets. The IMR expenditures that we talked about, that's where this is recorded. So they are a little bit higher than forecasted. However, the SGF expenses are a little bit lower. We have less revenue coming in, there's less expenses. So that's why this one is correlating to being under the forecasted costs. So at the end of quarter one, the division is overall within its budgeted costs and will be continued to be monitored throughout the year. If there's the main thing to just remember from this whole presentation is that there was no saving of money on the labor disruption. Just to make sure that's clarified, that money is in fact being clawed back. So just wanted to just kind of make sure that was very clear. But I'm happy to take any other questions if anybody has any.
Hi, Avis. Thanks for this great report. I have a question from your first slide on the school generated funds and fees. They seem to be about half of what you had hoped or what the budget had indicated. I guess it's not what you hoped. But,
yes. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, because I've heard from some of the schools that they don't ever expect to collect those kinds of fees. Like they always have this shortfall, but it's pretty significant. And I'm wondering if there is anything we can do about that or if it's something that just gets to lay.
And the other, I guess the other thing too with that number is that is for, we do kind of a likelihood when the estimate of the school generated funds are sent to the schools. So we calculate for every possible type of fee. So for example, even the presentation that you just saw, so that would have been included in that school trip for if that had been for 25-26. And so maybe that hasn't been collected yet because that's going to be later in the year. So it's kind of broken out through, it is by far the trickiest thing to budget for because in my experience, we've budgeted for everything and then it always is underneath the budgeted costs. But in terms of how to increase that collection, yeah, I know that there are difficulties in that, but any costs are covered by those fees. Yeah.
And just to add to that, Cheryl, it's maybe not quite as much on the collection front, but maybe it's just the number that we budget is a high number, right? And the realistic chance of us ever getting to that based on actual usage is kind of low. So typically, if we look at historical amounts of what we usually collect versus our expenses, you'll find that the revenue and expenses are, as Ava said, are usually much higher than the budget is usually much higher than what we actually collect. So it could be a discussion for budgets coming to this next year. Do we look at budgeting based on every possible scenario, or do we look on budgeting based on historical previous context, right? So another discussion we could carry into budget.
Christina and then Allison.
Thank you, Avis. Always appreciate it. And I also just always want to reiterate that I hope the public feels reassured through these presentations that even a threshold as low as like a 0.2 percent variance is noted and monitored. I always appreciate that it's made very plain, even at that very small scale. Like, yes, 40,000 variance feels, when we say the word 40,000 is a lot of money, and it is. In the scope of our enormous budget, it is much smaller than it sounds, but it's still meaningful. And so I appreciate that it's noted so plainly. The question I had was, who determined the clawback amount? Or how does that get, how did that?
Absolutely, that's a great question. So Kyle and myself worked with Alberta Education. So it was a collaborative process for sure. Yeah.
Alison.
Thank you for the presentation. It's always great to have the visuals and makes it easier to understand. Just back in regards to the school fees piece, just wondering, I know that when we approve school fees, there's lots of stipulations around that. So my query would be, you use based on what we approve for school fees. So just school fees can only be approved once per year by the board, and they need to request higher than what they might ever actually anticipate. So I think that that's a key piece as well when you're budgeting, is that we're basing those fees on what might happen, but often those school fees that are charged are less than, but schools have to predict what is the highest that they would ever request.
Yes, that's a great point, Alison. Thank you for that. Yes. Yeah.
Craig.
Yeah, I was just on page 7 of your report,
Mhm.
and I think it's important for the public to understand this. We have the budget, our preliminary budget, but the updated budget, of course, takes in that $6 million
Yeah.
clawback,
Yeah.
which means also less expenses.
Correct.
But people will look at it and say, oh my goodness, at the end of November, we've got a $2.3 million deficit. And the actual deficit's 1.9, but at the end of the year, we're down to 23,000. Can you kind of explain why to the public there's such a big deficit, but then at the end it isn't a big deficit?
Absolutely. So our funding, while the school division runs mainly from September to June, our funding comes in from September to August. So it's broken down so while it does look that those actuals are higher, throughout the year, it will even itself out.
And thank you for the report too. But
Thank you.
that's good for the parents to know, because, I understand our teachers are funded on 10 months, but we run 12 months. So.
Yes. Yeah. And like a good example would be our busing as well. So all of our costs are within 10 months. However, our funding comes in from Alberta Education over 12 months.
Thank you. I'm looking for a trustee to move the motion to accept the first quarter financial report for the 2025-2026 school year as presented. Christina makes the motion. Thank you, Christina. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you, Avis, for your report.
Thank you.
All right, we will now move on to 11.3, and I'm going to ask trustees, when you present your action item, if you can do a brief introduction, but if you can start with your motion to open debate and conversation, we'll be grounded in that. Thank you.
Thank you. So in that case, I move that the board submit the West Lethbridge Elementary School Boundary Engagement Initiative for the Alberta School Board Association Community Engagement Award prior to the deadline of September 16th, 2026.
And I will let you speak to that if you'd like to begin.
The information and background is before you. In January 2026, ASBA opened the ASBA Awards, one of which is community engagement. I note that I listed the criteria attached below, and it looks like I did not actually attach those to my memo, so I apologize. They are publicly available, and trustees would have received them via ASBA as well as our board chair. Reviewing the criteria, I would like to nominate the West Lethbridge Elementary School Boundary Engagement process. I just think it is an opportunity for us to highlight the significant effort and achievement of division leaders, including former Associate Superintendent Christine Lee, Director of Facilities Daniel Heaton, Communications Officer Garrett Simmons, principals, parents, and many, many others, including trustees and all levels of our staff teams. I think it was just a really meaningful engagement process that truly was about learning what our community needed and responding to it. And I think it's a timely nomination in that this is the first year of operation of the school that opened as a result.
Thank you for bringing this forward, Christina. Are there any comments or questions? Craig.
I appreciate that, and I think it's important to honor the achievement of our division leaders. But I think as part of that presentation, we need to include the Boundary Review Committee because they, in my mind, did a lot of work with our administration to bring that to pass. And then we had the support of the board to come forward with those decisions. So just if on the process, just make sure we mention that because I do think that committee did a lot of hard work. And it also recognizes the work of our our associate superintendent and our superintendent in that too.
Thank you, Craig. Any other comments? Allison?
I don't have anything new to add, just the fact that I think the engagement process went really well. And I think that it was our community recognized the importance and the value of doing it. And I think that what we saw after definitely reflected the work that went in both with the staff as well as the committee as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Allison. Any other comments or questions? Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. I look forward to that being presented at FGM next year. All right, board advocacy statements. Christina.
I'd like to move that the board develop a list of agreed upon advocacy priorities for the 26-27 school year and that it be scheduled to be updated each year at the beginning of the school year.
Did you want to speak to it before?
This other I like this order, but I'm getting confused. Obviously, one of the principal priorities of any governing body is to ensure that we are collectively advocating, in particular with one voice on our major priorities. We are guided in our advocacy by ASBA, by PSBA, and by our own division, but in order to achieve our objective of one voice in advocacy, I think it would benefit us to have a public list of that in the fashion that ASBA does, that this board has had in past terms. And so I'd like to ask that we consider approving this motion with the work to happen at a committee of the whole to determine that list.
Thank you very much. I will open it up to comments and questions. Cheryl.
Thank you, Christine. I think this is a fantastic idea, and I would fully support having a list of advocacy priorities with the caveat that it does not impede us from adding to the list as things arise.
Craig.
I'm not sure I would support this separate motion because in our 4 years in our strategic plan, we've set out our advocacy priorities. So what would be the difference? If we're meeting as a strategic plan, we're already doing that. So this seems to be kind of extra work or extra knowledge. If we're already setting those advocacy, all we have to do is refer back to our strategic plan, which we do every month. So I'm not sure we need this in my view, but I mean, I do support that we need to have a list of advocacy, but we already do that.
Thank you, Craig. Any other comments or questions? Christina, would you like to respond? Do you have a response for Craig's?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that I think it's valuable to have it set out in a more governance language style document that can guide our advocacy. Because I think sometimes our documents are more related to like individual public user information or as communication as a requirement of Alberta education and not necessarily tools of governance specifically. And it would allow us to translate, I agree, the priorities that are well documented in our various other documents into more advocacy language that would just guide, like when we get a chance to bump into, an MLA at a breakfast or we get to talk about an issue that we not only have the topic, but that we have shared language around how we describe our desire around that, right? Whether it's, obviously we all want increased funding for education. There's many, many ways that we could talk about that. What is our strategy? Do we say we want it for early ed? Do we want it for all students? Do we want it for inclusive? Like there's many types of language that we could use, and it would be easier as a governor, in my opinion, to have specific language provided.
Thank you very much. Allison.
And totally see where Craig's coming from with his point, and I almost wonder if you would be accepting of a friendly amendment rather than having that it's updated at the beginning of the school year. If we can look at tying it to when we're doing our strategic plan, so that my friendly amendment would be that it would be updated annually rather than tying it to a specific time, so that if we're able to, then we're able to pull it out of our strategic plan work, because there is the advocacy section in our strategic plan, so then it would directly tie, as well as we can see what ASBA's advocacy pieces are, and we can tie those pieces together. So I just think that changing the wording would allow more freedom rather than the specific at the beginning of the year, but that it would be intent that we have to do it annually. So friendly amendment.
Accepted. I appreciate the bridge between that. That'd be helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. I hear Craig's concern with it, and I appreciate the talking points piece to it. I think we have fulsome information within our strategic plan and our online documentation, but I agree if for trustees to have common language when advocating, and so then we develop that common language between ourselves as well as within the community, that just propels us forward in a stronger way. So the amended motion is on the floor. Yes. Oh, okay.
I think the amendment was to be updated annually. So strike each year at the beginning of the school year to read that it is scheduled to be updated annually.
Annually, yeah.
And that we would understand in practice that is largely tied to the strategic planning process.
Yes. Okay. Any further questions? Those in favor?
I was just going to say, I can live with that one.
Thank you, Craig. All right, and that is carried. Do we feel we need to vote on that one again? I think we're good. Okay. Okay, okay. 2026, 2027 school calendar, Mike.
And if you're okay, I'll provide the background before we get into the motion, just to keep things tidy. So I'll provide you with background. I'll try not to get too far down into the weeds, but of course, if you have questions, by all means, let me know. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you a little bit of background on some of the factors that we consider when we're doing the calendar. Very high level overview. We'll talk a little bit about the policy and how this aligns with the policy, and then I'll get into some details of the calendar just to have you aware of in case you have questions or concerns, or you get questions down the road. So whole bunch of things that we have to consider when we do the school year calendar. Under the Education Act, there's certain requirements about how many days that teachers can teach. One of our requirements is we have to set aside 2 days for teachers' convention, for example. We'll go over some of the policy items here that are required. We also have instructional hours that we have to consider. So at high school from 10 to 12, that's 1,000 instructional hours. 1 to 9 is 950 instructional hours, and kindergarten is 475. We also have to look at assignable time for teachers, which is up to 1,200 hours in a school year. We do coordinate with Holy Spirit to try and align our calendars as much as possible. We've done that. Holy Spirit has their processes a little bit later, so there might be some changes, there might be some incongruencies, but right now it looks like we're fairly aligned for the most part. And especially, I know there's always interest on those professional learning days. If Holy Spirit changes, we'll try and give you a bit of heads up on that. We of course have busing and bell times that we have to consider, and we have to do double runs with our buses, so they have to serve more than one school, so that creates challenges. One of the things we always have to be aware of is when diploma exams and PATs happen, because that has a big impact on when our calendar ends. And then, of course, each of the levels, high school, middle school, and elementary, each have different needs. So it's a matter of keeping them consistent, but making sure they have some space and autonomy to do the things they need to do. Another big one is the timing of holidays, particularly when Christmas and Easter fall, obviously have a big impact on how our calendar looks. And this year, Labor Day also impacts it. And then, of course, stakeholder considerations. So we always have to consider who are our stakeholders, what do they need out of a calendar, et cetera, et cetera. And this has been discussed with school-based administrators, a representative from DSC, representative from the ATA local, QP 2843, QP 290. So we always try and get as much feedback as we can as we go through the process. Sometimes that works really well. Sometimes that's tricky. Never do we get 100% consensus on everything, but we usually have a general direction of how people are feeling on it in a certain area. So next, I'm going to talk about the policy. So we have a policy 601.2.1 school year, and that actually provides a plug for that policy. I find that policy really helpful in our calendar development because it gives some very specific guidelines, and it allows me to come back to you to say, okay, we've met those guidelines, or oh, we didn't, but here's why. And it helps you with your oversight, I believe, and it's a good example of when policy is that way. It really just helps things to be more efficient. So we're going to go through it really quick. So the policy does say each school year shall normally, and there's a reason that it says shall normally, and this year is a great example because there's some things based on when holidays happen that we had to change a little bit. So 2.1, provide for 5 days for teachers prior to the date students begin attending. We have that in there, so that's a check mark. 2.2, have students begin classes on the day following Labor Day. That's where the shall normally comes in. We do not have that because we just wouldn't have enough days in our year. And this happens about every 5 years. Like if you look back, I think it's the 2020-21 school year, the exact same thing happened, and we started on September 1st, just like this. So that's certainly what we're recommending, but obviously we would not be starting classes following Labor Day. Provide for a non-operational day in recognition of National Truth and National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. That's in there on September 30th. 2-week Christmas break. We have that in there. Family Day break, we have that in there. 10-day Easter/spring break, we have that in there. Provide for 2 half-days for parent-teacher interviews in the fall and 1 half-day for parent-teacher interviews in the spring. We have that as well. So in the fall, that would be either October 13th and 14th or November 12th and 13th. And then in the spring, it would be March 11th and March 12th. And then breaks from instruction days for professional learning will be common for all schools when possible. We are common pretty much across the board with one exception, and this is an exception that we have pretty much every year. The March 11th day, middle school and high school students will be in school all day. Sorry, middle school and high school students. Elementary students will be done at lunch. It'll be only a half day for them. And the reason for that is they just tend to have more interviews to get through. So that's why that day is adjusted a little bit. We are fortunate. Actually, I'll just kind of go through the calendar bit by bit. So that's a general overview, and I'm just going to kind of go month by month. Again, as you can see, we'd be starting on September 1st. Teachers would then be back on the 25th. We don't have a specific date for support staff when they're back because that varies. It depends on the position group. So once this calendar is approved, then those days get developed from there. We have September 30th it falls in the middle of the week. It's not ideal, but that's the way it goes. Those days move. One of the things, just so you know, this October and November dates. So normally we have 4 days of professional learning or parent-teacher interviews in October. Okay, actually, technically, high school doesn't have one of those days, but that just kind of confuses the issue. So there's 4 days, and normally what we've done is we've had 3 days, and typically it's that October 21st, 22nd, and 23rd on there. Kristen, if you could make that a little bit bigger, that would, I think, help. And then we had 1 day of professional learning in November. So yeah, October 21st, 22nd, 23rd is when we normally have 3 professional learning days, then 1 in November. That didn't work great because with Remembrance Day being in the middle of the week, it wasn't ideal. What we were looking at was we felt like the beginning of the year was really disjointed. So, the first week is a short week, then you have Labor Day, so that's a short week. Then you have a disruption in the middle of the week at the end of September. Then you'd have Thanksgiving. Then the next week you'd have 3 days off for professional learning. Then you come into November, you'd have the 11th off, and then you'd have another professional learning day somewhere in there. And it just created some disjointedness as well. Over the years, we've found that our elementaries want different interview times, prefer a little bit later, whereas middle school and high school prefer a little bit earlier. Having, especially at the high school level with a semester system, having interviews in mid-November isn't always ideal. You want to have them a little bit earlier. So this format allows us to accommodate that. We haven't decided when exactly the parent-teacher interviews are going to happen and when the professional learning is going to happen. We're going to use both of those time slots to do a bit of that. So, I think generally speaking, not everybody agreed with this approach, but I think generally speaking, most people thought it was a good way to do it and provides us with a little bit of a break in November as well, because November can be very challenging. It's a long time without a break, and we certainly see increases in behavioral challenges at the end of November into early December, and so that helps just break things up. I believe that Holy Spirit is going to align their calendar with those dates as well, although with the caveat that, again, they could change based on their discussion, but that's my understanding at this time. So that's just one to be aware of, because that is a big change from what we normally do. And there's a few things that we're going to have to figure out, like how we do our collaborative community days, how we're going to do our professional learning. So it might not be perfect. Some of it might be a messy. Personally, if we go ahead with this, I'm excited to give it a try and see if we can think outside the box a little bit and really do a good job with our professional learning, but also do a good job with parent-teacher interviews and connecting with parents in a timely manner. You'll see we're back on January 4th. You'll see that January 29th is for high school. That'll be the semester break because there is a diploma exam on the 28th. And then for middle school and elementary, that'll be a professional learning day. That one's been tough in the past because often it falls in the middle of the week. So it's nice that it aligns with the end of the week. And then the second semester would start February 1st. March, I've talked a little bit about those days for professional learning. You can see we've got a little bit of an early Easter. And so that means our Easter/spring break is a little bit earlier next year. Here's an FYI that there are varying opinions on this. So often what we've done is we've put a professional learning day on the April 5th when we get back from the Easter/spring break. And the concept being, it's nice for teachers to have a chance to catch their breath before they get back. It gives families some flexibility, that sort of thing. We decided with Easter being so early that it was better to move that professional learning day a little later in April to break up that long stretch between April and May. Not everybody agrees with that. Some people like it on the 26th. Other people would prefer it on the 5th. So I just want to make sure you know that, so you're not blindsided when you hear, why did you move that? I don't like that decision. That was I think that's going to align with what Holy Spirit's doing as well. So, but it's just an FYI for you. That was an area of debate and discussion. I think the general consensus from our administrators was they thought the 26th was the way to go, but you could find different people who would say different and say, no, we would want to do the 5th. So, and then traditionally in May, we've tagged a professional learning day onto the long weekend. So that's pretty standard. Here's one for you really to be aware of. The end of the year is a little bit funky. So we would have elementary, middle school students end on the 25th. That's excellent. It's a Friday, so it's not a full day. That works out really well. There is a diploma exam scheduled on Monday. So that means we would have staff back on the Monday and the Tuesday. Okay. I talked specifically with administrators and said, well, do we look at just ending the school year on the 28th? Because, there's going to be a diploma exam, but you can kind of wrap up your year. Feedback I got in particular from the high schools was a number of them do their grads on the last day, and they can't do it on the 28th because kids are writing diploma exams, that sort of thing. So having that last day on the 29th worked a lot better for them. Some of our elementary and middle school staff, I'm sure, will be like, why are we here for 2 days after the weekend? Like, let's just be done. And if you look back at the 2020 21 school calendar, we did the same thing. So we came back for those 2 days. So there might be a bit of feedback on that. Personally, I don't mind if staff have a little bit of time after the school year just to wind down and connect, sometimes say goodbye for the summer, all those sorts of things. But you will probably hear varying opinions on that. So just so you know on that. And then if you could just scroll down a little bit more, Kristen. And I think we've got all the math right here, but just when you look at the number of days, probably the biggest one to look at is that. So we like to be right around 180 is pretty good for student days. Could be a little more, try not to go too much less. So we're right in that ballpark. 179.5 for elementary, which is consistent with where we've been last few years, 180 at middle school, and then 181 at high school. The semesters are relatively balanced, so that's helpful. In terms of teacher days, another thing you might hear, and you don't have to answer this, but if you're asked, but just keep it in the back of your mind, the 197 teacher days. Normally, last few years, it's been around 195, and people will go, why do we have 2 extra days? All that we did is we looked back, and in the past, we used to count the teacher convention days, because I look back actually at the 2020-21 calendar, it was basically the same. I'm like, how do you have 2 more days on there? And I realized they were counting teacher convention days back then, and that's really, in the last few years, we haven't. So 195 days is actually 195 days plus 2 days for teachers convention. Now we're just counting them in there because technically those are work days for our teaching staff, and it's required under the Education Act. So we haven't added days on or anything like that. It's just we're counting differently. So that was a lot. And the last thing I'll say is, when we look at, I know we always get feedback about trying to align with Holy Spirit. We've certainly worked hard to do that. We'll see where we end up on that. But it is important to remember that, for example, Holy Spirit, I think they work with 5 different school divisions to try and align their calendar. And I know they don't always, even internally, are not always able to align their calendar. I know when I worked in Palace, they're very similar because Calgary schools have a different structure than the rest of the schools. And so we work really hard on that. We're sensitive to that, but we don't always get it perfectly. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. Okay, that was a lot of Mike talking, but make sure I don't think I missed anything. But if there's questions, happy to answer them.
Craig.
Just a comment, and I'm actually glad that you had a couple of days, because as a former elementary teacher, it just was so hard because you had kids right up until 12:30 or 1 o'clock or 3:30, and then school was out and you didn't have to come back. Well, there's no chance to wind down like high school teachers have for a couple of weeks of winding down. So I think it's good for teachers, especially at the elementary level, that once the kids are gone, you get a couple of days just to clean up and get organized. So I appreciate that from a former teacher.
Christina.
And we heard some of that feedback. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. Christina.
Thank you. I know this is always a daunting task. I just imagine like Post-its or something, like trying to figure it out. But a couple questions. One, I hear you on the April date and the PL. I feel like that must be that's a very long stretch, even with one PL day, to have no significant change in the flow or like long weekend or break. That's a very long stretch. So it's definitely challenging when Easter is early, in my opinion. It's always like, hope the weather's good. Hopefully it's a nice spring. Second, I think on the same note, maybe if you give some context about consideration or conversation about, so you talked a little bit about a PL day back from spring break, obviously recency bias, but I've also heard lots about, could we ever have one after winter break? And then I have another question after.
Yeah, that's a great question. That one does come up, and there's definitely an interest in that. There's a couple potential challenges with that. First of all, it's related to sort of when diploma exams end, because it is nice if, especially at the high school level, if we can get a bit of a break between the semesters. So teachers can wrap up what they're doing in the previous semester, get ready for the next semester. The other thing is with diploma exams, and I don't think it's an issue this year, although I haven't checked it, but often Part A's are pretty quick when you come back. And if you have a PL day as well in front of there, that creates challenges. So that's why we left it the way that we did. But yeah, it's a really good question, and people would like to see that probably even more than after the Easter break, quite frankly. Yeah.
I agree. And then, so then to that point, the semester, end of semester one is not listed in January, but semester 2 start is listed.
Yeah.
Do we generally leave that to the schools? Because I know each school typically develops their own calendar with some of those specifics. Is that a local, like, site-based decision?
No, that just is an omission. We should have just put semester 1 ends in there, and it ends on the 28th because that's when the diploma exams are. And so no, there typically isn't any flexibility because it's set based on diploma exams.
Sorry, last one. After the calendar gets published, the next round of questions we get is bell times. Do bell times follow this? And then that's a site-based or like a administrative decision. Those don't come to us.
Correct. Yeah.
Thank you. Looking for a question or a motion, please. Craig.
I move that the board approve the 2026-2027 school year calendar as presented.
Thank you, Craig. Are there any further questions or comments? Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you to you and the team for doing all the hard work on that. All right, we move forward to 11.6, committee terms of reference for approval. Cheryl.
Thank you. We have 5 terms of reference from 5 different committees that have come forward. All of these are great, except for the Boundary Alignment Committee. And the only tweak that's needed there is there's no policy references at the bottom of the page. I think they got removed. And as we know, all of our terms of reference should have a policy reference to them because these are board committees. As they are approved, so far we've approved the Policy Advisory Committee terms of reference. And I just want to say thank you to Kirsten for coming up with the brilliant idea of adding the approval date in the footer. And so then as we're looking at those, we can easily tell within the policy which were approved when. So with that in mind, I would like to put forward motions, and I'm not sure if you want to do them one by one. I think that's appropriate.
We do need to do them one by one. Yeah.
And so I would like to put forward the first motion that the board approve the Community Engagement Committee terms of reference as presented and update Exhibit 203.4.1A Standing Committee terms of reference to include the newest approved version of the Community Engagement Committee.
Okay, I'm looking for questions or comments on this. I did have a question for this one, and it was under the annual objectives, number 6. Consult with producers of media associated with education to optimize opportunities for showcasing division personnel and events. We have a communications officer, so I'm just curious how this fits within a board committee and how it is different from what our communications officer already does. So I'm just looking for clarification on that.
Sure. And who's the chair of that committee? I think Tiffany, yes.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. And, I think some of this is language that was taken from the previous. I think it's really about Garrett specifically working with various media outlets. I mean, one example would be the Lethbridge Herald. So we do quite a bit of work with the Lethbridge Herald. And so that's one of the ways we get out our message about the division and theoretically engage the community as well. Yeah. Other ones, I don't know I think consult with producers of media is probably fine. We do a lot of social media advertising as well to promote the division, that sort of thing. So that's really kind of where it's coming from.
I know, I appreciate that. I think they're tied pretty closely, so I just, yeah. Brooke and then Christina.
Just Garrett's membership in the committee covers that? Or he's always present when those discussions take place?
I was just going to say it kind of mirrors like Poverty Intervention Committee, where we do have like Deanna's team, and a lot of the tasks that she does for her job are covered under the auspices of that committee.
I do appreciate that. Thank you. And then also just a note, number 11, the committee will gauge interest and viability 2 years prior to potential implementation date. I think that, as I recall, that should go under number 9, because that's regarding one district, one book, correct? So number 9 is determining interest in one district, one book. And then number 11 is the committee will gauge interest and viability 2 years prior to potential implementation. So just moving that up, that's all. Yeah.
So you would like to have number 11 become part of statement 9? Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, or it could be a 9.1.
Yeah.
Like it could
But
be a
it needs to be
subpoint under
connected
9.
to 9.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Craig.
I was going to talk about 9, and I'm wondering, as our division grows, is that really logistically able to do it? Because what you have is high school students and elementary grade 1 student, and they're all reading the same book. And I'm not sure if I can see the value in having one book for the whole division for every 6 or 7 years, because there's such a wide variance in what kids can learn and can do. So I guess I'm not sure if that should be continued. I guess that's my concern, is that one of the things we want to do with kids in grade 1, 2, and 3 is get them reading. And as far as I can tell, if you want to hold the high school students' interest and an elementary student's interest, the teacher's going to be doing all of the reading in grades 1 to 4, maybe even grade 5. So I'm just throwing this out, is that a valuable thing to do for a whole year? And I'm not sure I'm convinced that that's a valuable thing to do for a whole year, unless somebody can show me some data that says that it was good. I'm still dubious on that.
Thank you, Craig. Cheryl.
I think any opportunity to read is valuable. And I also believe that this is an excellent opportunity to have a community district-wide based celebration of literacy. With respect to the differences in the grade levels, there are many formats of the same book available. So you could have a novel that's been converted into what are those books called with the pictures? Graphic novel. Thank you. An audiobook. So I would think that this would be feasible, but I also think that the Community Engagement Committee would be the best place to make that decision, and perhaps Tiffany chairs that, and she can take that concern back to them.
Thank you. Mike.
And we did have that conversation about this particular one, and the thought was, because it doesn't tie us to anything, just keeping it in there as something to consider, very much for the reasons Cheryl outlined. Yeah, but we definitely, so I was smiling when you were talking, because we had that very conversation at the meeting. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions? I did not ask when I made my suggestion if it would be considered a friendly amendment. Would that be considered a friendly amendment to move 11 up to 9? It's not, it's clerical. So how do we?
I think we would present the amended terms of reference. Is that how we would frame the motion? So we would withdraw that motion and restate the motion instead of terms of reference as amended. Does that
work?
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Is everyone okay with that? I don't have to read the whole thing again?
No.
Okay, very good.
As
Thank
amended.
you. As amended.
Any further questions? Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving along, the second motion is that the board approve the terms of reference for the Wellness Committee as presented and update Exhibit 203.4.1A Standing Committee terms of reference to include the newest approved version of the Wellness Committee terms of reference.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No. Oh, you just, okay, we'll get you a new battery, Allison. That's all that is. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none, those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Keep going, Cheryl.
That the board approve the terms of reference for the Superintendent Evaluation Committee as presented and update Exhibit 203.4.1A Standing Committee terms of reference to include the Superintendent Evaluation Committee terms of reference.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Allison.
Here, Craig. Maybe it's just me. I switched, yes. It's me.
Just electric.
It's me.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all good. We're good. Just in regards to number 1 under the mandate of the committee, just curious in regards to the wording of it. Sounds to me like the committee is going to facilitate the actual appraisal of the superintendent and that the board would approve the appraisal, but it's actually the committee does the, facilitates the process and the entire board does the appraisal and the entire board approves the appraisal. And I don't know that the wording here specifies that the entire board is doing the appraisal and that the committee is just facilitating the process.
Yeah, do you have a suggestion? If not, I can offer some suggestions. Yeah. But if you've got something I'll just wordsmith. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Facilitate on behalf of the board the annual appraisal process for the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, I think I do think adding process is good because it's specified down under annual objectives. It's specified.
Because what you articulated is definitely the intention.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So I wrote down some words. So I would say to develop for the board the process for the annual appraisal of the superintendent of the schools. That's the actual job of the Superintendent Evaluation Committee.
Can you repeat that again, please,
Yeah.
Craig?
To develop for the board the process for an annual appraisal of the superintendent. The process for an annual appraisal of the superintendent. Because that's actually what we've done the last 2 years. And I think it's a good process, and it helps the board be focused, and it also helps the committee know where their limits are in, as far as the evaluation goes.
Do you mind if we keep the word facilitate? To me, when you say develop, that seems like more of a hard line. And I think if you facilitate it, you are more collaborative. That's just a word. I'm not hung up on the word.
And I guess I just look at facilitate a little differently than that. But I mean, I'm not opposed to it as long as we understand in the words that we're developing a process for the board to do the annual. So
may I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
sorry, I talked over you. That was
no,
rude.
that's fine. I'm just
to have both. To facilitate on behalf of the board the annual planning and organizing of the superintendent evaluation of the annual planning and organizing of the evaluation of the superintendent of schools. I jumbled my own statement up. But with that, to facilitate on behalf of the board the annual planning and organizing of the evaluation of the superintendent of schools. Because then it's just pulling, I'm just pulling words from annual objectives number 4, which is where the process and the intent is also stated. And so I'm just repeating words from the document.
Yes, can we keep in the first sentence the word appraisal, because the second sentence, so we know it's very clear we're talking about the same thing. So instead of saying the evaluation, we would say the appraisal.
And that second sentence is directly from the policy, because that was one of the requests of the board to align it with the policy. So
just so we know we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah. So what I hear you saying, if I can put it into words, to facilitate on behalf of the board the planning and organizing of and the annual appraisal of the superintendent of schools.
Yeah, I think that meets the objective of what that committee was supposed to do. I'll see what Allison feels, but I feel that it does facilitate that.
My question is, when you said the second sentence is from something, can you specify what second sentence you're referring to?
On number 1, the appraisal report shall be submitted to the board for approval and reflect the position of the board as a whole rather than any individual trustee.
But where did you say that you saw that somewhere else?
It's from the superintendent evaluation policy.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I believe that was a request of the board to align the two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You look like you're not convinced on it, Allison.
Allison.
I'm just looking at the policy and trying to see where the word appraisal is even in here.
We are doing the 300 policies later, so it might be.
Just looking for clarity on, we're making statements of what's in here, and I'm not seeing the word appraisal once in this evaluation piece, and the title of the thing is the student superintendent evaluation. So just looking for clarity.
You're right. It's actually the second part of that. It comes from it's in 2.6 and also 1.7. So that's why it's not a direct. And I think, again, that was, so it's actually the second part will reflect the position of the board as a whole rather than any individual trustee. So you're right, appraisal isn't in there. And that is taken directly from 1.7, which says reflect the position of the board as a whole rather than any individual trustee. And I think 2.6, but let me scroll down and make sure I'm actually giving you accurate. It says the report shall reflect the position of the board as a whole rather than in any individual trustee. So you're right, Allison, the part that is from the policy is reflect the position of the board as a whole rather than any individual trustee. Does that make sense?
It does. Just the word appraisal isn't anywhere in our entire policy. So I was just clarifying what I'm not seeing. So.
Yeah, correct.
Yep. Thank you. Any other questions?
And we could easily change the word appraisal because I believe that's the old language in the old terms of reference to evaluation. Yeah, and I think if we change it to evaluation, that does address your concern about consistency, Cheryl. Yeah.
I just think where it says in this document appraisal, just change it to the word evaluation so it aligns with what our current policy states. So if it says appraisal, change it to evaluation.
Yeah. Change that word, I guess. So you want to change wherever it says appraisal in this document, you want it to say evaluation? That pleases you?
It's not about pleasing me. I just feel that it aligns with what is in our policy, and our policy says evaluation. So it's up to the whole board. So
I'm looking for feedback on changing the word appraisal to evaluation. Craig.
I would agree with that because that's our job, is evaluating the prints of the superintendent. And evaluation to me is a stronger word than appraisal. So it's actually, and it's consistent with our policies. So we should leave it like that.
Thank you. All right, so my understanding is we have to facilitate on behalf of the board the planning and organizing of an annual evaluation of the superintendent of schools. The evaluation report will be submitted to the board for approval and will reflect the position of the board as a whole rather than any individual trustee. Is that correct? Okay. All right.
Okay, is that a new motion then? Are we
That will need
withdrawing
to be,
the
yeah, we'll
previous
need to
one?
withdraw and then
Okay.
make new
Okay.
to amend. Yeah.
So we'll withdraw the first motion, and this motion will be that the board approve the amended terms of reference for the Superintendent Evaluation Committee and update Exhibit 203.4.1A Standing Committee terms of reference to include the newest approved version of the Superintendent Evaluation Committee.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions or comments? Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you.
All right, the next one is the Board Budget Committee, and this would be that the board approve the terms of reference as presented for the Board Budget Committee and update Exhibit 203.4.1A Standing Committee terms of reference to include the newest approved version of the Board Budget Committee terms of reference.
Thank you. And I will open it up for questions or comments. Christina.
I just had a question about 1.2. No, wait, sorry. 1.1. Is it a public meeting? And if not, the in and out of camera may not be relevant.
They are not public meeting. Our committees are not public meetings, but we did get legal on that in terms of the in camera, and they felt, yeah. But it's a great question because we don't want to mix up the streams. But yeah, just because of the potential nature, just make sure everybody is bound to confidentiality clearly. Yeah.
Any other questions? Craig.
Now, it would be my understanding that when we get to the end product in May, that would be the budget, be the school board, but it's basically the chair of the budget committee that's running that meeting, right? Because that's what's happened in the past. So that's why it would have to be move in or out of camera. It cannot pass motions except to move in and out of camera, because we have to make motions during that budget meeting in May, right? So just clarify that.
Yeah, that meeting becomes a meeting of the board, so an official legislated meeting of the board. Yeah.
So that's why that's still in there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, so our meeting in May is not a committee meeting. Okay. Any other questions? Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Oh,
That's okay. Okay, so that the board approve the terms of reference as amended to the boundary alignment, or for the boundary alignment committee, and update exhibit 203.4.1A standing committee terms of reference to include the newest approved version of the boundary alignment committee terms of reference.
Thank you. And Mike, just before you start, I'm just going to pause. Kristen, can you please check to see if there is anyone online for public forum? Just Garrett. All right, thank you. Continue, Mike.
Yeah, and Cheryl, thanks for letting me speak on this one. We met as a committee last week, I believe it was, and I agreed that I would update the terms of reference based on our conversation. I did send it out to the trustees, but we didn't get a chance to connect about it. So if there's a trustee on the committee who says, you know what, Mike, this isn't ready for prime time, not insulted or anything like that. We just felt like if we could get it done for January, not that we're trying to rush, but if we could get it done for January, we would. The key changes are, and I'm sorry they're not color coded, but are on point 1, 2, 3, and 4. That's where we kind of thought we needed to do a little bit of work. I think everything else was pretty standard, if I remember correctly, and the board has already seen it. So. When I say 1, 2, 3, and 4, reporting, review, and evaluation, that section is the section that we updated. Should have been clear on that.
I will open it up to comments and questions. Allison.
Mine's super simple, just the title. It should be boundary, not boundaries.
That can be considered a friendly amendment. Any other questions or comments? Greg.
Cheryl did mention that she can't find policy, but isn't it the policy on the committees?
What I said was that this document that was submitted doesn't have the policy references on it.
Oh, okay.
That's all.
But
Yeah.
there are policy references.
There are policy references, but they will need to be
added,
included before this is posted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much.
Excellent. So just one little quick reminder before we carry on. We are missing the updated terms of reference for the following committees. So if we could get those back sooner than later, please. The Board Audit Committee, the Facilities Committee, the Indigenous Education Advisory Committee, the Poverty Intervention Committee, and the Spirit of 51 Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. So chairs of those committees, you can just forward those on to Cheryl as you are able. All right, we will now move on to 11.7, distinctive program awareness. Cheryl.
All right, so I don't need to read the preamble, but I would like to explore the idea of having some of our special programming within schools highlighted or showcased with brief presentations if those various programs in schools are willing. A couple of examples in the memorandum include, for instance, the French immersion program or the Christian school program, just things that we do that are above and beyond what is normally a traditional public education system.
Thank you very much. I will open it up to comments and questions. Christina.
Yeah, I'm the liaison for Agnes Davidson this year, and at the recent school council meeting reminded them of the process by which anybody can provide a public presentation to the board, highlighting I always love when the Spanish I always forget their name, the bilingual parents group come. They always do a great presentation of sort of the status of that program for us, and just highlighted to Agnes Davidson, and they were very happy to hear that reminder and I know that they were eager to share some of the wonderful things. As Mike said earlier, we've got Carnival this week, and it's very exciting.
Cheryl, do you have a motion to put forward? We'll go to the motion first.
No, I don't have a motion. Did you want?
Not a motion. Okay, it was just under action. So,
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
I'm
good.
sorry, right?
No, it's okay.
Oh, yes, the
You have-
recommendation,
yeah.
sorry. The motion is that it is recommended that the superintendent or designate have distinctive program presentations added to the board agenda commencing in February 2026 and continuing thereafter as necessary or feasible.
Excellent. Thank you. Mike.
Yeah, and my question was sort of just around that last piece about making sure I was clear on, because we can get you information on the programs, but just understanding the board's intention. If I understand correctly your intention, because we do we showcase a school or a couple schools every month, but I think to just understand, I think the intention is to be a little more purposeful and targeted, and I think you'd really appreciate having folks come in person. Am I correct in that?
Yes, but more importantly, I'm wondering if those folks that we're inviting would like to come. Like if they see this as a positive opportunity, if they see this as a make work project, then no, we can take a written report. But if they would cherish the opportunity to be present, then I would like to give them the opportunity.
Perfect. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Appreciate that.
Craig.
I think this is a good idea. Number one, because I'm not sure all of our public understands what special programs we have in the division, and education is not a monopoly anymore. And and so like, for instance, we have a Montessori program that I know a little bit, but not enough. And that's been a key program in Lethbridge Public. We have 2 Christian schools, or well, 3 Christian schools, but the public needs to know what they do and why are they part of the public system, and also our French immersion program. And we've had it for a lot of years, but how many actually know what goes on? And we know what the Spanish bilingual program is because we've had 2, maybe 3 presentations on it, and it's been valuable. And I think anything we can do to showcase these schools, and if we develop more programs, then that's it just continues to give us more, I guess, positive PR, that we actually try to do things for students that are looking for different things to learn. And so I think it's a valuable thing to do, and I appreciate the motion coming forward.
Thank you. Any other comments? I agree. I appreciate the motion. I think we have, as a division, many programs to celebrate and lift up and to become aware of. And so I think this will be a really great opportunity for us as a board, as well as the public, to become more aware of what is being offered. Seeing no more hands, those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. We will now move on to 11.8, 300 policy section. Mike.
So there'll be, in the recommendation, there'll be 3 policy recommendations coming forward. As part of our efforts to enhance our governance practice, the work is underway to consolidate, reduce redundancy, and to improve coherence. The 300 section is currently under review, and I ask Mike to speak to it, and then I'll make my recommendation.
Thanks, Brooke. And I'll just give some background information for trustees to consider, and to a large degree so the public is aware as well. We worked on the 300 section starting this past summer, actually. And the previous board did get an opportunity to look at it and like the direction, but we just ran out of time to do the actual approval process. So we thought it would be a great opportunity for the new board to help orient them to policy a little bit and what policy could look like. We have worked with this board to provide them with information as we've condensed the policies, where we were condensing things from, where we were taking items from and removing them and condensing them and all those sorts of things. The 300, the administrative leadership positions policy, that one was developed primarily in-house, again, condensing a bunch of policies. The 301.1 superintendent roles and responsibilities, that was done by Brian Callahan, the consultant. Also, Brian played a role in one of the things he did for us is when we condensed a bunch of current policies into 300.1, he looked them over, and because what we really needed was a second set of eyes to make sure, did we take something out that we shouldn't have taken out, or and he had a couple minor recommendations for us, and so that's where the work's got to. The goal is to make the policies more succinct and certainly more focused on governance. Really today, when we get to first reading, the goal is this directionally correct? Is the intent correct? Is the board comfortable with the intent? And that's where we're at. That's the work that's been done. So I'll turn it back over to Brooke if he's going to make a motion.
So the first motion I'd like to make is I would like to approve the restructuring of the 300 policy section, reducing the number of policies to the following. Policy 300.1, administrative leadership positions. Policy 301.1, superintendent roles and responsibilities. And policy 301.3, evaluation process for the superintendent of schools.
Thank you, Brooke. I will now open it up to questions and comments. Craig.
As we start to look at these, I just wish to express that policies are a living document. They're not a pass them in, they're done with. And so I hope we don't get caught up in looking at little details that we might have missed, but it's the spirit of the law that we need to look at, that we're trying to reduce the number of policies. And I think this is a good one because we've reduced, I think, 6 of them to 1. And we didn't need to put everything in there. We know that this policy is going to allow us to maintain not our policy, but trying to think of the word, what we usually do. Practice, exactly. The practice of, because we don't have anything about having trustees on interview committees, but the practice is there and we're going to continue it. And so I would just hope that we look at it from that point of view, that this is a good start and that as we go through it, and these policies will be living, and as we go through it, they will be reviewed on a regular basis. So I'm in favor of the policies and hope that the majority of the board can approve them.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Brooke.
I move that the board approves policy 300.1, administrative leadership positions for first reading.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments and questions or questions? Seeing none, those in favor? That is carried. Brooke.
I move that we approve policy 301.1, superintendent of schools roles and responsibilities for first reading.
Cheryl. Okay, well, she's getting ready. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Craig. Oh, okay, guys, really, come on. Any comments?
I think the board has done a very good job of lots of preliminary work to get to this point. So we're all excited to get this work done.
Those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mike, for all of your work on this 300 section. I know you've put a lot of time into this. And so thank you for helping strengthen and guide the board as we work on our policies. Craig.
Question for clarification. Since that was approved unanimously, could we move ahead to the approving of second reading?
No. Sorry.
I'm just questioning the process so that so the public understands and trustees understand.
Certainly. So the process is first reading will happen on the first date. You have to wait till the next meeting to put forward the second reading. The third reading can happen on the same date as the second reading if there is unanimity. So we'll be able to move it forward in February should it continue to be unanimous for the second reading.
Thank you for that clarification, because I think sometimes the public and teachers and administrators and us get confused.
Thank you, Craig. All right, 11.9, Education Week contribution. All right, I would like to move that the board contribute $1,500 to ATA Local 41 for the purpose of recognizing teachers during Education Week 2026. So for this item, for the past 2 years, ATA Local 41 has celebrated their incredible teachers by having a draw contest wherein parents and students can nominate a teacher. The executive selects the winners. I think they randomly draw the winners, and then what they do is they go to the school to present who the winning teachers are. The students, their classes get a pizza party, and you see the details in the memo there. This is the first time this request is coming to the public meeting. The first time it wasn't because it was a surprise to teachers. We are in the third year. It is no longer a surprise, so it is fitting to come to the public meeting. In the past 2 years, the board has matched the $1,500 that the ATA has put to this celebration, and so they have requested a third year of support for this. And so I open it up to questions or comments. Seeing none, those in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much. It's a great opportunity for the board to support the recognition of our incredible teachers and to partner with our ATA. All right, we will move on to number 12, division highlights. Brooke. Oh. We're good. No, you're good. But Brooke, we'll start with you for division highlights.
Well, I just want to express something that happened last week, that when I was on the board before, it never happened. I'd never been to an administrators meeting. And to get that group of people in one room and have a conversation with was extremely valuable. A lot of emotions I had after it, up, down, all over the place. But I just want to say how proud I am of our administrators in this district, and the support that they have for each other is exemplary.
Thank you, Brooke. Christina.
Yeah, just enjoying a chance now that I'm back in person, being able to visit all my schools and just enjoy the wonderful spaces that our schools are and the welcoming environments that they create for all students, family members, community members. It's always funny because like the first round of visits as a liaison, sometimes you don't know everybody, they don't know who you are. So it's always like it's a moment to like witness it before they realize you're a trustee, and it's always equally as lovely. And then the special treat for me was presenting to the grade 6 class at Lake Heath.
Thank you. Craig.
Yeah, I stopped in at Park Meadows and was able to take a tour with the principal, and I had not heard of this place, but I think it's Parker's Place. Like, what a great, I just can't say enough about that. To see those kids with aids there and other kids coming in and then trying to get the kids integrated into the classroom, but also recognizing that some of them have things that they need to do outside. That is, to me, one of the best examples of trying to make inclusion work in our schools. And I was just really blown away with that. The other one I did was I went to West Cooley Station for a school council and nobody was there. And then the caretaker I found phoned Dean and said, "Oh, our choir is singing at the Hurricanes game." So I ended up going to the Hurricanes game, but we miscommunicated. And then I bought a ticket, but then Dean gave me a free ticket. And now I get to go to a Hurricanes game on Friday. But it was great to go and be with the teachers and the students and the parents and grandparents. It was quite exciting. And then we did have the West Cooley Station meeting the next day. And so that was good. And I've gone to Lethbridge Christian for a school council. And tomorrow night, I get to read to some students. They're having a literacy night, and I get to choose what I want to read. So it'll be kind of fun. So
That's great. Thank you, Craig. Cheryl.
It's been a busy month for all of us, I'm sure. I would say the school council meetings that I attended were great, and I'm very pleased, as are the staff at Nicholas Sharon School, that they get to participate in the Good Movement program, which Morag touched on, which is all about Indigenous wellness and health and communication. So they're excited to do that. And hats off again to all the teachers and staff who reorganized all their days and their schedules so that they could fit these 6 afternoons in.
Thank you, Cheryl. Tiffany.
So I would have to go along with what Brooke talked about. It was a huge highlight for me to participate in our admin budget meeting. And I just really enjoyed hearing the administrators be able to express their appreciation for their staff and all that they're doing and all the wonderful things. It was so fun to hear that feedback and to just talk about how their staff just continues to keep going and doing more with even less. And sorry, I always get emotional, but it was amazing. And then also to hear some of the challenges that they're facing, and they're just like, despite it all, they just keep working through it. And so I just am excited to, I was excited to meet all of them and just to see how professional they are and just how fortunate all of our students are. So that was a privilege.
Awesome.
For me, the highlights this month were attending a couple of school council meetings. So at Robert Plaxton, they've opened up to do virtual again. So it was a great opportunity. I was able to be away but still participate. And then also at Senator Buchanan to be able to participate in their school council, and the number of parents that are coming out and engaged in school councils as well as DSC, lots of participation. Pulling up extra chairs so everybody has a seat is absolutely awesome. So the work that they're doing at Senator Buchanan around supporting all of their students and working together with community and community dropping off food when there's extras at other things. And it was just amazing to hear the community support at Senator Buchanan. So those are my highlights.
Excellent. Thank you, Allison. I would echo the comments around our administrator and board lunch. I'm thankful and I'm grateful to work and serve in a community where leadership encourages that kind of connection and allows that kind of connection. I know some boards aren't privileged like that. We don't have those walls as a board in engaging our professionals, and so valuable as we head into budget, and not just for budget, but it's so valuable for us to be able to connect with the leaders that are outside of our liaison schools, kind of outside of their buildings even, and just to be able to take them in as a collective, as a team, and to hear their challenges and their successes and just be part of that. So thank you for organizing that and guiding that the other week. And the other highlight was I was able to attend the Churchill Welding Banquet a couple of weeks ago. And so the students and the staff there put on a fancy evening in the Learning Commons. The food students cooked a great spaghetti dinner for us, and it was just a way for the school to say thank you to the business partners that helped make that welding shop happen. And we had a tour of the welding shop, and I'm excited to get in there and try welding. And their classes are pretty full for both welding and metal art. And so, it's exciting to see that happening and live right now. Okay, we will move on. Oh yes, please, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to extend my thanks to the board for coming to the administrator committee meeting as well, for having an opportunity to share a lunch together and share that time together. It was really greatly appreciated. And thank you for the comments that you made. And one of the things that really struck me was it was obvious to me that our school-based leaders were very comfortable sharing with you their story. And this has been a tough year, sharing their challenges in a very raw and vulnerable way. And that doesn't always happen easily. And so to me, that's a real sign of the work that I think we've done in this division, but that you have done it as trustees to build that trust. And I know our administrators well enough to know that they're not afraid to share their story. But I think that speaks really well to the culture that we're working to develop in this division, that I know this board wants, and certainly that executive council wants. And so yeah, it was great. So really appreciate you being there and able to take that time to do that. Meant a lot to the administrators. So thank you.
Thank you, Mike. All right, we will move on to 13.1, charter school update. Mike.
Yeah, and I'll be fairly quick on this. As the memo says, on December 22nd, we did receive notice that Alberta Education has approved an Alberta Classical Academy charter school for Lethbridge. That's contingent on some legislative and regulatory requirements being met. It's possible, according to the correspondence that I have, that it could open in September 2026. The original correspondence that we had was that it wouldn't be opening till September 2027-28 school year. So that's the update.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions around charter schools? Cheryl.
I would like to comment on this. Just a timeline. So the application was received to the minister's office, I believe, on October 17th. And then the division had 2 weeks to respond. And then the application was approved on December 22nd. So that's pretty quick turnaround, and I'm pleased that the ministry is able to demonstrate that they're able to do such quick turnaround. And I look forward to seeing the same quick turnaround on the October 29th promise to Alberta divisions for the 1,000 new teachers. And hopefully we're going to see some of that, as well as some quick turnaround on our accelerated capital projects that we've been patiently waiting for.
Excellent. Thank you, Cheryl. Are there any other comments? All right, seeing none. We will move on to 13.2, Community Engagement Committee. Tiffany.
All right. The reason I wanted to pull this committee report is just on number 4. We had discussed the future of community conversations and what format those events could take for the rest of the year, and thought that the board needs to make some decisions on what that's going to look like. Because we do have a motion that the board, that was made in December of 2021, that the board host community conversations with the public up to once a month during the school calendar year. And so we have an opportunity also with town hall. We have that as one of our questions. And so that can give us some direction. But I do feel like we need to make ourselves available. And so I wondered if we could make a decision and maybe come up with some dates so we at least have a few before the end of the year.
Thank you. No, it's a great conversation to have. To give context for this, our board did host community conversations, and they started off as every month, I think. They did start off as every month. 2021. The first initial meetings were a lot of community members came, and the number did decrease. And then with the meetings decreased, and then there was a shift of moving this committee and the planning of it to the Community Engagement Committee. And I know that there was some board conversation of what is the feasibility and what does it look like. So this is a good conversation for the board to have. And so I think it is a valuable tool. an opportunity to be able to connect with community members. In my reflection, looking back, I found every month seemed to be a lot. We put in a budget item, it was $200 per meeting just to provide for food and beverages. So certainly I'm open to planning these. I think they're valuable. It's important to connect with our stakeholders. And I think it's valuable to be able to go to different sectors of the city in different times. But I would be cautious of doing it every month. I don't know that that's feasible. So I will open that up for comments or questions. Tiffany.
I'll just say one more thing is we do have people asking about it. We had actually a person at DSC that was like, do you do that anymore? And so I do think it is important that we do it, and we can decide, it says up to once a month, so that, we can do it however often we decide. If we want it less, whatever.
No, I agree. Craig.
Having been to almost every one of them, and maybe it's because I'm retired, but I don't know if it's effective to have it every month. I think maybe if we look at a quarterly one, and sort of like you have the town hall, and then you do one on the south side, one on the north side, and one on the west side. I know the last time we did one on the west side, we got nobody. Although the Indigenous students quite enjoyed our donuts. That they ended up, because they were doing that wellness thing with the young guy from Rocket, I think, or whatever. However, there has been some good stuff come out of it. And there's stuff that sometimes parents need to be guided to where they can ask questions. And that's part of our job, is to let them know this is how you do things. But once a month, and there's a number of us that have jobs, and so that's hard for them. And I would like to have more trustees there. So I think if we plan it on a quarterly basis, then that would be a little more effective for all of us. And then we could advertise it a lot more so that everybody knows that this date we're going to be in this place.
Thank you, Craig. Allison, and then Brooke.
Yeah. I believe they're very valuable. I get asked all the time, when are you having them again? I think when the last year, there was certainly some struggles in regards to, I think, whatever it is, the communication needs to be clear and well in advance. So the one that nobody attended, it was a week's notification kind of thing. So it's, if we're not communicating well in advance, people have no idea and can't plan. And it's usually through school councils and DSC that we're advertising, as well as through our website and Facebook. So I think it's about notification and consistency. So if it is, going to be quarterly, then it needs to be consistently quarterly, not that, oh, we couldn't do it. And we certainly had backup plans that if it was an outdoor event, we had plans to move it to other options. So I think it's just the communication and consistency. But I get asked all the time, when are they going to be? We want to come. And even though numbers are low, it was always different people coming, and it was different sectors. Certainly our daytime ones are harder, but I think it's important still to offer them at daytime, because people do shift work in our community, and it recognizes that. But if we space them out through the city, space them out through time, people can look and find one that works for them versus not offering the opportunities. So, and the original intent for those that are new is that it would be, sometimes coming into a school building is intimidating for people. So it was always that it was off school property. So it was somewhere in the community. It would be at a variety of times so that it would fit. Anybody would be able to, at some point in the year, be able to attend, and the different locations. So it was accessible to no matter where you lived in the city, so that they would have access to a trustee and be able to meet and talk in a non-formal way, rather than coming to our 5 o'clock public forum or a presentation. They had access to a trustee. So,
thank you, Allison. Brooke.
Well, having attended 2 of them as a member of the public, I can say they're very valuable. I love the idea. I love everything. But what happened at both of them that I was at was there were conversations going on in the room that I wasn't involved in, because there's good conversations, but there wasn't a conversation of everybody in the room. So I missed a lot at both of them that, within earshot, they sounded like, oh boy, I'd like to be talking to that, but I was talking about something else. So as far as format's concerned, I understand not having a formal format, but some sort of facilitation that goes on so that the whole room is involved in the conversation would be my only suggestion.
Thank you, Brooke. Any other comments? All right, I'm hearing there's interest. I'm hearing of an interest for more of a quarterly. So my recommendation would be to try, what is that? I'm doing math. Every 2 months, every couple of months, every 2.5 months to try that. We can plan for the remainder of the year and then reevaluate. And then if there's further details for us to discuss, we can put that on our committee of the whole agenda. Does that work? Okay. Christina.
So does Community Engagement Committee set it up now that we've moved it there? Like, or does the trustee that's responsible for Community Engagement Committee responsible for setting the date? Like, I guess what's the action here?
In past, administration hasn't been involved with setting them up. We don't go, we don't know who goes. And that was intentional just so people can, feel comfortable and really connect with the trustees. So whether it's through community engagement or whatever, certainly Kristen and Garrett can help with organizing and getting it out there. But that's one where we will step back, and not in a bad way. That's not anything from the trustees. We're good with that. That makes lots of sense. And but just want to make sure. So whether it goes through the committee, you just bypass me, and that's fine. Yeah.
My understanding it is through the committee. Yeah. So the committee can go ahead. Yeah. So that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Craig.
And as part of that discussion, I think it's important. And what's been noted, we need to, once that committee meets and makes a date, then every day there should be something on the website saying that there's going to be a community conversation coming up. So our advertising needs to be better.
Yep, and I think that's where it's beneficial to be part of a committee, and the committee can take ownership of it and do that work. Okay, there has been no correspondence sent. Sorry, I thought you were waving me. There's been no correspondence sent or received, and so I'm looking for a motion to move in camera, please. Oh. I'm looking for a motion to move past 6. Should we need?
That was my question, was can we just do, I will make a motion to move past 6 o'clock. If we don't need it, that's great. But knowing
Then
that
we
we have
have
a
it.
couple of items in camera to talk about.
Thank you, Allison, for the
Thank you.
motion. All those in favor? And that is carried. Can I have a motion to move us in camera, please? Allison, those in favor? All right, thank you.